Our story begins here. At a school track meet with female students cheering on the sidelines, someone crosses the finish line in just 2 minutes, 36.79 seconds. That's Thoi Kin, the protagonist of this story. The girls immediately start screaming like crazed fans. He looks calm as he pours water over himself, which only drives them wilder. The girls can't help but scream even louder. A girl walks up and offers him a towel to wipe his sweat. She looks absolutely ecstatic when he takes it. While wiping himself down, he checks his system panel. He gained 20 running experience points, and his running skill reached level 3 with 258 out of 800 experience points. The experience gain was a little higher than usual. Then he notices something else. His charm stat has increased by 45. He scowls in disgust, seeing how fast this useless skill levels up. Suddenly, a ball is thrown at him. He blocks it with his palm. Someone threw it on purpose, though he doesn't know why. Judging by that guy's expression, the reason is probably standing right behind Thoi. Kin's friend walks over and asks what happened. His friend also asks if Kin knows that guy. His friend is Lai Kwa, and he freezes the moment he recognizes the other guy. It's the school bully Bui Ngok Quang. Li Kwa immediately asks why Kin had to go and provoke him. He sighs, assuming it's over some girl again. He tells Kin to just accept one of them and save himself from attracting the hatred of the entire school. But Kin isn't interested in that. Li Kwa points out that even if Kin isn't interested, the guys around him clearly are. He also warns that Ngok Quang is not someone to be messed with, and asks what he plans to do. Kin replies that he'll just work out. Lai Kwa nearly shouts that working out is useless and that Kin needs to practice martial arts instead. It might be useless for others, but Kin is different. A month ago, he inexplicably arrived in a world almost identical to Earth. Along with him came a system panel. And here effort is actually rewarded. His hard work is never wasted. As long as he trains enough, he can activate the corresponding skills. He had met the conditions and unlocked the level 1 marksmanship skill. Although daily training brings great benefits, the consumption is also immense. And when he opens the fridge, it's completely empty. He doesn't train this hard just to look cool. The place he lives is called Urban Ring Number 5. Since it's a ring, there's an inner area and an outer area. The farther out you go, the poorer and more desolate it gets. The farther in, the more prosperous and noble. He still has half a year until graduation. He can either fight his way into the inner ring, or live his whole life in poverty. It's time to choose. Kin goes out to buy groceries, and the total bill is 210. It makes him turn pale, and he decides to take a few items out of his basket to stay within budget. He can't believe 5 eggs cost 30. He mutters that this is insane as he walks through a dark alley. Something suddenly jumps out. It's a stray cat. It lands right in front of him like a professional scammer blocking his path. But then he notices the cat's scars. It's covered in wounds as if it just lost a fight. The cat speaks up, complaining that it didn't expect the world of stray cats to be so cruel. Kin freezes mainly because the cat just spoke. He wonders what on earth is wrong with this cat. Then he notices the rings on its tail. When he touches it, the system detects a divine substance. He absorbs the divinity. The planet he's on is called Earthstar, a world also known as Chuxia. 2 months ago, God died. On that day, all humans on Earthstar witnessed it with their own eyes. They rejoiced as the gods died. Humanity could finally stand on its own 2 feet. And Kin will grind his way up until he himself becomes a god. At Kin's house, he gives the cat some cat food, but it refuses to eat. In fact, it looks at the bowl with clear disdain. Kin feels annoyed. He can't believe this stray cat. It won't even touch it. Then he remembers something important: this cat can talk. He realizes it's not just a cat. He goes into the kitchen and starts cooking. While working, he gains 20 cooking experience points. He chops vegetables and cooks everything over high heat. Soon after, he places a bowl of rice with shredded pork and green peppers in front of the cat. As soon as the cat sees it, it starts to drool. It eats happily. Kin wears a smug look, satisfied that he was right. He realizes the reason it can speak human language is simple. It's not a cat. It's a person who was turned into a cat, and the reason he suspected it had something to do with the rings on its tail. Suddenly, the system informs him that the divinity absorption, it is complete. The divine skill, Twin Destinies, is inactive but requires divinity to be activated. 525 out of 50. He has met the requirements, and the system asks if he wants to activate it. Without a second thought, he presses yes. The screen flashes brightly before informing him that the Twin Destinies skill has been successfully activated. Qin raises an eyebrow, unsure of what it actually does. The passive effect of twin destinies gives him 2 lives. After dying, he can choose a revival time within 7 days. The cooldown is 3 months. He stares at the panel in disbelief. This is basically a revival armor. If the passive effect is already this powerful, then the active skill must be totally overpowered. Unfortunately, the active skill is still locked. It requires divinity to unlock, and he only has 25 out of 500. Qin glances at the cat and briefly considers draining the rest of its divinity. But when he takes a closer look, he realizes just how badly injured it is. That makes him hesitate. To continue draining it now would be inhumane, so he decides to find another way. However, he can't just let the cat go. He plans to go out first to look for clues related to divinity and see what the cat will do while he's gone. The cat is left alone at home with a camera, watching it. In the outer ring. For someone from the outer ring who wants to enter the inner ring, the difficulty is absurdly high. Even if they manage to get in, they also have to pay an exorbitant fee, often enough to bankrupt a small, wealthy family. Despite this, countless people still flock there. But what most people don't know is, there's another way one can become a martial artist. All problems would be solved when, as Qin was walking through a dark alley, a man holding an iron pipe appeared in front of him. Qin calmly asked, "Is there a problem?" The bald guy turned to the blonde one and asked if this was the person their boss Vu Kuang had his eye on. They warned Qin that he was a dead man. Qin could only sigh. In the blink of an eye, the bald guy collapsed. Everyone was stunned. They didn't even see Qin move. The blonde guy was attacked next. Then the third man was hit square in the forehead. Qin hadn't even taken a step forward. He was just throwing pebbles combined with his aiming skill. The men groaned in pain as they finally realized Qin wasn't as harmless as he looked, but one of them still charged at him. Qin's eyes activated as the man threw a punch. Qin dodged just in time, and it was a good thing he did, because the punch had shattered the ground where he had just been standing. That wasn't brute force. It was martial arts. The man grew irritated because this kid was too agile. On the other hand, Qin was relieved. If Vu Kuang knew martial arts, it would save him the trouble of finding someone to ask. He stepped forward and told the man to explain everything he knew. Otherwise, Qin wouldn't go easy on him. The next thing we know, Vu Kuang is slammed to the ground. He trembled, promising to spill everything he knew. Qin smirked. He had thought this guy was tough. But after all that show, it turned out he was just a one-trick pony. Vu Kuang continuously threw punches, and Qin quickly realized that after all this time, that was really his only move. However, thanks to him, Qin had met the requirements and activated the combat aiming skill. Not only did it sharpen his kinetic vision, but it also improved the accuracy of his punches. It was more than enough to deal with a martial artist of Vu Kuang's level. Before long, Vu Kuang was begging him to stop. Qin asked what that punch technique was. Vu Kuang worried. Explained that it wasn't a technique at all, but internal energy. It's the act of focusing energy from the entire body and releasing it through a technique. Qin asked how to train it. Vu Kuang admitted that he had only learned the basics and couldn't explain it clearly. Qin grabbed him by the collar and called him pathetic. He brought up the rumors about Vu Kuang smoking, drinking, perming his hair, arson, murder, and even breakdancing. That made Qin wonder how such a ruthless guy could submit so easily. Vu Kuang hastily explained that those were all rumors he needed to build up his image. If they were true, there's no way he'd still be allowed in school. Qin slapped him and warned that if Vu Kuang forgot today's lesson, he would beat him up every time they met in the future. He added that since Vu Kuang liked to bully his classmates, he had to write a self-criticism letter when he got home. Then he had to read it 10 times in front of the class during morning reading tomorrow. One of his underlings had to film it so Qin could check later. Vu Kuang's face was swollen. Tears streamed down his face as he swore to obey everything Qin said. When Qin moved again, Vu Kuang thought another beating was coming and screamed for him to stop. But Qin just bent down and took his phone. He looked up the address of the martial arts dojo. Since Vu Kuang couldn't explain internal energy clearly, Qin decided to go there and ask himself. That night in the city's inner ring, Qin followed the map precisely. The system told him to turn right in 120 meters. The system notified him that he had gone through a battle. He received plus 109 physical points and plus 50 aiming experience. He felt refreshed, receiving plus 33 health preservation points. He also met the conditions to unlock the combat skill. On top of that, he received plus 68 combat experience. His stats were updated. Physical reached level 2 with 431 out of 500 points. Health preservation reached level 1 with 269 out of 300 points. Cooking was at level 2 with 279 out of 500 points. Jogging reached level 3 with 502 out of 800 points. Aiming reached level 1 with 208 out of 300 points, and combat was unlocked at level 1 with 68 out of 300 points. Normally, grinding hard at the gym for 1 hour would only increase his physical points by about 200. This battle wasn't too difficult, and it gave him much more than a regular workout and even unlocked a new skill. He quickly realized something important if he wanted to grow fast. He would need to pick fights more often. Soon, he arrived at the Fuang martial arts dojo. At first glance, the dojo looked surprisingly nice. He walked in and said he was there for a tour. The staff member immediately signaled for him to be quiet. The master was teaching a class. He turned to see the master instructing 5 students. He explained that the breathing method is the foundation of martial arts. By controlling one's breath, one can activate the internal energy in the body. Only when the chi flows completely can a person be considered to have truly begun their training. Qin's eyes lit up. This introductory training method was exactly what he was looking for. He leaned in and whispered to the staff member, asking if he could join. She blushed as he got closer. It was clear she found him handsome. She told him he could join, but warned him not to overdo it. From that brief exchange, his charisma gained plus 30 experience points. He thanked her and went to an empty cushion. He listened intently to the master. The female staff member watched nervously, unsure if Qin could endure it, since this was his first time with martial arts. They were instructed to inhale as deeply as possible and then hold their breath. The female staff member secretly hoped at least one student would succeed. If not, the master would blame her for wasting his time. As the master counted to 37, a few students had already given up. The faces of the others contorted as they tried to hold on. She felt disappointed when even Thoi Chin-Win, the one she had the highest hopes for, finally gave in. The master's expression darkened as he walked towards her. She quickly begged him for a few more days, promising she would find a suitable disciple. But to her surprise, he walked right past her. He told her to be quiet. There was still one kid holding on. He stopped in front of Qin. Only then did Qin realize the truth. The breathing method sounded simple, but it was brutally difficult. A huge amount of oxygen flooded his lungs. Without a strong lung capacity, one wouldn't even be qualified to practice. Inside his body, his true chi was constantly expanding. He swelled up as if he was about to explode, but then the time ran out. Tin slowly exhaled as the system announced that he had activated the internal energy skill, currently at 69 out of 200 when he opened his eyes. The master and the female staff member were gathered around him. They asked him how he felt and if he had any discomfort. He answered honestly that, on the contrary, he felt refreshed. The staff member asked for his name and then asked if he wanted to join the Golden Wind Dojo. Suddenly, the glass window shattered as something burst inside. It was a giant flying insect, and it immediately devoured one of the students. Everyone froze in horror. No one could comprehend what they were seeing. The master reacted first, opening the door and yelling for everyone to leave immediately. He called for the staff member Ms. Zhang to help maintain order. Blood splattered everywhere. The monster turned its attention to her. Without hesitation, Tin rushed forward to save her. They fell to the ground together. Pinned underneath him, she felt relieved and, strangely, a little happy. She even wished he would stay on top of her forever. Tin's charm increased by 20 points in that moment. He remembered what Du Kuang had once said. Internal energy gathers power from every part of the body and then releases it in a single move. This was the perfect chance to test it. So Tin did just that. The giant beetle-like monster charged straight at Tin. He punched it in the head. The impact created a fierce gust of wind. Tin hoped this thing wasn't like a cockroach, able to withstand hundreds of times its own body weight. If so, then brute force alone wouldn't work. He needed to focus all his strength into a single point. He adjusted immediately. His next punch crushed its exoskeleton. The system announced that he had activated inch force, currently at 80 out of 200. The monster was sent flying backward. Tin let out a loud cry. Its blood splattered across the room. Only then did Tin realize the truth. It looked terrifying, but it was much weaker than it appeared. Ms. Zhang stared at him in shock. The master, however, looked worried. Tin had only just grasped chi strength, yet he had already released a huge amount of it at once. His body wouldn't be able to handle that kind of pressure. The monster steadied itself and let out another angry screech. Tin could tell it still wanted to fight. He calmly declared that the outcome wouldn't change, no matter how many times it tried. Chi surged through his meridians and gathered in his arm. The pain was immediate. He winced and then he suddenly coughed up blood. Something was wrong. The monster charged again. That's when Tin realized he had pushed himself too far. A sense of alarm rose within him as he watched it close the distance. Then suddenly, someone intervened. In a flash, the monster's body was sliced in two. Tin was stunned in disbelief. A woman stepped forward and introduced herself. She was from the White Fang squad, captain of Squad 838, codename Void Blade. Her team had secured the area and ordered all non-essential personnel to evacuate immediately. This was the first time Tin had ever heard of the White Fang squad. Killing that cockroach-like monster in a single blow meant only one thing: the people in this organization were terrifyingly strong. Voidblade glanced at Tin and quickly sized him up. He looked only 17 or 18 years old, yet he had severely injured the monster with his bare hands. Moreover, she found him very handsome. She began looking for a reason to recruit him. She walked over and handed him a piece of paper. At 5 p.m. on Sunday, she wanted him to go to the address written on it. She promised to tell him what he wanted to know. Tin took the paper. On it were the words, Ching Cheng Library, 7th floor. Outside the dojo, Zhang hurried over and asked Tin if he was okay. She was worried about him insisting on taking him to her home. Realizing what she'd said, she corrected herself to say, to the hospital for a checkup. He reassured her that he was fine. He thanked her for letting him visit the dojo, then he left. She called after him, telling him to come back tomorrow, but the master quietly shook his head. He felt it was unlikely. A kid who on his first contact with Chi could already display that level of power. A small dojo like theirs simply couldn't hold on to someone like him. As Jin walked down the street, the system continuously sent notifications. He received plus 29 physical experience, plus 89 vitality experience, and plus 50 charm points. He also received plus 98 combat experience, bringing his combat skill to 166 out of 300. He was now qualified to activate Inch Force. The concept of Inch Force was simple. Concentrate chi into a single point, then accelerate to maximum speed over the shortest distance. If used correctly, even the toughest defense could be broken. Jin wanted to experience it again. He tried to activate it once more. Immediately, a wave of nausea hit him. He remembered the master's scolding from earlier. For overusing his chi like that, Jin decided not to tempt fate. He would get some proper rest and see how things were tomorrow. After learning about the White Fang squad and that cockroach-like monster, he couldn't stop wondering how many secrets this world was hiding from him. In the end, he decided to go to that address on the weekend. When he got home, he noticed a light coming from the window. He checked his phone and saw what the cat was up to. It was sitting in front of his computer. The moment Jin walked in and spoke, the cat jumped up in surprise. He asked why it was messing with his computer. Caught red-handed, the cat still tried to play dumb. That just annoyed Jin because the cat wouldn't explain. Jin decided to deal with it after a nap. He lay down on the bed. The cat tilted its head, sensing something was wrong. It smelled blood on him. Did he get into a fight? The thought immediately irritated the cat. She had already claimed him as her own. Who would dare bully her person? She jumped onto Jin's stomach and demanded to know what happened. She told him to spit it out no matter who it was. She Nin Fang Le, the Dragon Gate sect master, would get justice for him. Jin calmly confirmed one thing first. So it really could talk. He admitted that he always knew it was a person, but he was exhausted. They could talk after he got some sleep, and just like that he fell asleep. Fang Le angrily yelled at him, telling him he could at least explain before sleeping. By the next day, Jin's stamina had fully recovered. They talked while they ate. Fang Le learned that he hadn't been beaten up by anyone. Instead, he had defeated a monster. Jin nodded, confirming it. She frowned, having never heard of monsters roaming freely in the city before. Din reached out and patted her head, thanking her for worrying about him. She immediately blushed when he called her name. Pretending to be tough, she said he wasn't allowed to address her so casually. He had to address her respectfully as the clan leader. She demanded that he call her Lady Ni. Din played along, and since she was now able to talk, he finally brought up something else. He wanted an explanation for what she did in the video on his computer. Her eyes widened and a cold sweat broke out as she froze on the spot. The thing on Fang Mi's tail was called a cattail ring, a type of divine artifact. She was looking up information about it. He reached out and touched her tail. She yelped. 287 years ago, a god had died. It was said that the remaining specks of golden light were the divine artifacts. He had only heard stories about them before, but now he was seeing one with his own eyes. Now he finally understood how it could absorb divinity. She asked how long he planned on pinching her tail. He felt a little embarrassed and pulled his hand back. He asked if she was looking for an instruction manual for it. She said she didn't want to use it. She wanted to take it off. She explained that Dragon Gate is the biggest gang in Thantan City. They don't just control the entertainment venues. They also work with martial arts dojos to deal drugs. Their growth was too fast, and that attracted jealousy. She was attacked right in her own villa. Someone put that thing on her, and she turned into a cat. By the time she managed to escape, Dragon Gate had fallen into someone else's hands. She can only return to her human form. If the ring is removed and she wants those people dead. He asked her what she planned to do next. He said that if she couldn't find the answer online, then the library would probably be a dead end too. She told him that she had a plan. The plan was for him to practice martial arts and become strong. He asked what that had to do with removing the ring. She explained that once he became strong, various organizations would seek him out, and among them there might be someone who possessed a divine artifact. By following those connections, they could eventually find a way to remove the cattail ring. He smirked at the thought of people coming to knock on his door. So she intended to introduce him to the best dojo. She asked if he had heard of the Hidden Dragon Dojo. He said he had. Back when he wanted to learn martial arts, he had checked the tuition for every dojo in Thantan City. The Hidden Dragon Dojo was the most expensive of them all. But that wasn't what he remembered most. What he remembered was the overwhelming number of bad reviews. She snorted and said those people were trash. They couldn't handle the harsh training, so of course they failed. She added that in the true martial arts world, no one looked down on the Hidden Dragon Dojo. He asked how to get in. She said the answer was simple. Follow the laws of the Jianghu and challenge the dojo. He looked at her in disbelief and asked if they would really accept him after he wrecked the place. She looked at him as if he were a lost cause and said that challenging the dojo is just an interview. Disciples are divided into many ranks. Some pay to get in, but even if they train seriously, it's meaningless without talent. Others have talent but lack true strength. If it takes 15 or 8 years just to become competent, then it's useless. On the path of martial arts, mentality is the most important thing. Only a person with an undefeated spirit can throw an undefeated punch. Challenging the dojo is a way to nominate yourself, and it's the best way to prove that spirit. She told him to go tomorrow. She still had a few things to take care of. The next day, a disciple greeted Tin at the entrance of the Hidden Dragon Dojo. They shook hands, but the man suddenly tightened his grip. Tin felt the pressure and assumed it was a test. Since it was a test, he decided to take it seriously. He squeezed back with all his might. The man screamed in pain and started whining that his hand was about to break. Other students quickly gathered around and burst out laughing. They told Tin not to mind him. Apparently the guy was a martial arts nut who always tried to pick a fight with everyone he met, and he lost almost every time. The man's face turned beet red as his loud-mouthed friends exposed him. Only then did Tin realize, this guy was just some random student. At that moment the crowd suddenly parted. The old master was approaching with a few of his inner disciples. All the students were stunned. Even the old master himself had come out along with the rarely seen inner disciples. A few people whispered anxiously, wondering if something big was happening. Or maybe the dojo was closing down. The old master was Manbok Fuang. He was in a wheelchair with a black cat beside him. Pushing the wheelchair was a petite woman named Truxan An. To his left was a blue-haired man, Tran Fu Kuang. To his right was a tall man named Li Qi. Behind them was a woman named Man Tan Chiu. Tin froze. Fuang was there. The master raised his hand and the murmuring immediately fell silent. He looked at Tin and asked if he had come to challenge the dojo. Fuang quickly winked at Tin. Our protagonist glanced at her and remarked that she didn't look half bad. The old master chuckled. It had been a long time since someone dared to challenge his dojo. He asked Tin if he believed he was qualified. Tin answered honestly that if he was asked like that, he really didn't know. From what he could see, the fighting level here didn't seem very high. Bok Tuong decided to ask him a few questions. First was his name, which Tin answered. Then his age, 17. More questions followed. The longer it went on, the more nervous Tin became. The questions started to seem strange. So strange that it felt less like an interview and more like a matchmaking session. The master laughed and told him not to worry. It was only natural to ask these things when meeting a future. His son-in-law. Tin leaned close to Fuang and whispered, asking what was going on. She whispered back that she didn't know either. Truxan An spoke up, calling the master grandfather. She said that regardless of whether he was qualified or not, they still had to fight first. She looked at Tin and said she would go easy on him. Tin nodded. He was ready. The disciples were stunned. Their little senior sister was going to fight him personally. In their eyes, this kid was done for. Fuang puffed out her cheeks and complained that they were still fighting, while the whole thing had turned into a matchmaking session. Sanan warned him to be careful. Fuang felt a pang of worry for him. A target marker appeared. Sanan threw a punch, but Tin dodged it cleanly. He immediately grabbed her wrist and threw her to the ground. The impact stunned her. Vu Kuang narrowed his eyes and remarked that Tin's dynamic vision and grappling stance were very precise. He said that Tin's movements reminded him of his own style when he was young. Bok Thuong laughed cheerfully. He praised Fuang for finding such a good seedling for an old man like him. Fuang proudly replied that it was only natural, even though just a moment ago she had been worried for Tin. Tin turned to the martial arts master and asked if his dojo challenge could be considered a success. No, at the same time, the system announced that he had experienced a battle where the weak defeated the strong. He received plus 21 combat experience, plus 121 physical experience, plus 89 wellness experience, plus 56 cat petting experience, plus 139 sports experience, and plus 50 charm points. The martial arts master declared that since Tin had defeated San, and without any formal martial arts training, he was fully qualified to become a direct disciple. He added that it was time for Tin to change how he addressed them. Tin smiled. He greeted his master's senior brothers and senior sister. Vu Kuang welcomed him as their 7th junior brother. Sanan looked embarrassed. She introduced herself properly and said she had underestimated him. She warned him not to get arrogant just because he won once. That's when Tin learned she had been the youngest direct disciple before he arrived. He thanked her for the lesson, and she responded with a huff. A woman walked over and called him Young Master Tuyet, offering to guide him through the procedures. Tin was confused and asked why he was being called that. Bok Tuong explained that a direct disciple should never be taken lightly. As of that day, Tin was nominally an inner circle resident, so calling him Young Master was reasonable. Tin asked if they could change the title. It made him uncomfortable. She suggested calling him Master Tin. Tin sighed and agreed. In the lounge, Tin sat on the sofa while Fuang Na comfortably rested her head on his lap. He told her that challenging the dojo wasn't as hard as she'd made it out to be. After all, Sanan was taken down in just one move. Fuang Na shook her head and said he was wrong. Sanan was actually much stronger than him. Martial arts isn't just about comparing numbers. Mood, physical condition, intelligence, decision-making, and even luck can all determine victory or defeat. Tin thought back and realized that Sanan had underestimated her opponent. Fuang Na agreed. If that girl had been a little more careful and waited for Tin to make the first move, the outcome would have been very different. But a win is a win, and there's nothing more to argue about. Tin admitted that luck played a big role, and he needed to practice a lot more. Then he asked where she went last night. He wondered if she had stayed at the dojo overnight. Fuang Na replied that to get a person in, she had to go say hello to Old Man Lee. Tin asked why she called him that. She casually explained that Old Man Lee had almost had an affair with her grandmother back in the day. Tin was stunned. So basically, he was the other man. A staff member quickly handed Tin an identity, a verification card, and said that starting tomorrow, he could enter by swiping the card at the access gate. Tin thanked her. The system announced that the next day he received plus 20 charm points. Rumors spread that the new kid had been training all night. They were talking about Tin. Everyone was shocked by how strong he was. He received plus 234 experience, plus 133 wellness, plus 79 sports experience, and plus 89 internal energy experience. His internal energy had risen to level 2. He also received a large amount of favorability points, increasing his charm by another plus 35. Bok Tuong trained him without mercy. Tin was forced to hold a horse stance while the old master told him to try a little harder. His internal energy experience increased by plus 99. A little more, Bok Tuong urged, telling him not to waste the effort he'd put in all night. System notifications continuously popped up plus 99 internal energy experience over and over. The system congratulated him. His internal energy had risen to level 3. As soon as it was over, Tin collapsed onto the ground, landing hard on his butt. He was exhausted. Bok Thuong let out a sigh of amazement and said that among all the disciples he'd ever taken, Tin was the strongest. Soon he would be able to cultivate the technique of the hidden dragon sect. Ting lay on the floor panting. As soon as he heard that, he forced himself to sit up and asked what level he needed to reach to learn it. Bok Thuong stared at him, realizing that this kid was a true martial arts fanatic. Bok Thuong told him to hold out his hand. Tin thought they were about to spar again. Instead, Bok Thuong unleashed a powerful aura. His eyes turned red. Tin felt an immense flow of true energy pouring into his body. He didn't know what it was doing, and there was no way for him to resist it. Bok Thuong asked Tin what sports he usually practiced. Tin replied that he mostly just jogged and didn't do much else. Tin asked worriedly if there was something wrong with his body. Bok Thuong shook his head and said there was absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, Tin's body was frighteningly perfect. Every muscle, every bone, every organ was in balance, as if it had been molded by a god with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Simply put, he was a martial arts prodigy. Tin knew the truth. It was all thanks to the system panel. After activating his combat skills, his body had transformed into this state. In a way, he truly was considered a genius. He asked again if he could start learning the cultivation technique yet. Bok Thuong frowned and asked why he was in such a hurry. He pointed out that Tin had been training all night and his body was covered in injuries. Training now would be no different from seeking death. Tin asked what he should do instead. Bok Thuong told him to go to the rest area first, saying he would have someone bring the crouching dragon ointment later. That night there was a knock on Tin's door. It was San An. She had come to treat his wounds. Tin was stunned. He couldn't help but wonder why it was her, and if she was here for revenge. San An told him to take off his shirt. Tin did as she said. When she saw his upper body, her eyes lit up slightly. He was more muscular than she thought, and her reaction made him feel a little flattered. She told him to lie down. The system announced, plus 45 charm points. She ordered him to lie still and not move. She began applying the ointment to his body. Ting told her to wait, but he really couldn't understand what she was trying to do. The way she moved made him feel like she was deliberately teasing him. She leaned in close as she applied the ointment to his chest. Meanwhile, she revealed that she was actually a very competitive person. His face grew hot, but he realized that despite everything, his self-control was still holding up while she was on top of him. She asked why he wasn't saying anything. Tin calmly replied that as long as she was happy, it was fine. A moment later, she admitted that she had lost to him because she was careless. Even so, she still felt indignant and decided to use this opportunity to tease him back a little. The system announced again, plus 45 charm points. She said she hoped he wouldn't be mad at her. Tin's charm points kept increasing, but his expression looked stiff. He explained that he wasn't angry. He was just in a little bit of pain. "It's no big deal," she said. The upper body was done, and she suggested he take off his pants next. As she reached out, Tin quickly grabbed her hand and said he would do it himself. She giggled, saying she was just teasing him. Seeing him so flustered was amusing. She handed him the jar of ointment and said she'd leave the rest to him, then turned and left. He performed a crouching dragon stance training session and received plus 98 physical experience. Many identical system windows appeared one after another. Afterward, Tin went down to the street, his whole body aching. He muttered that it was terrifying. He almost felt like that woman had taken him apart. The system announced that he had leveled up. His combat level increased to level 3, and his internal energy increased to level 4. Tin smiled when he saw this. With no other plans, he decided to go to the library to keep his appointment. As he walked, he muttered that the name White Crow Squad sounded extremely childish, actually. It was just Thantan's special police force, though. He couldn't understand why they wanted to meet at the Tantan library. Tin arrived at the 7th floor. He was surprised to see it completely empty. For a moment he wondered if he was being pranked. Then someone greeted him. He turned around. A tall woman with long blonde hair came into view. She introduced herself as Vu Tin, the Vu from Childish and the Tin from Clear Sky. Tin asked where the Void's Edge was and why she chose the library as a meeting place. She explained that she was the informant for the Void's Edge. Since this was a private meeting, they couldn't use the special police station. She admitted that she was skeptical at first, but after meeting him in person, she approved. She told him to join them. Tin asked on what basis. She calmly said that she knew he was interested in the divine relics. His reaction alone was enough to confirm it. She chuckled lightly and asked how he knew about the concept of divine relics. He didn't want to answer her question. Instead, he became curious about this woman herself and what her background was. She said it was fine if he didn't want to talk. It was her fault for not explaining things first. She poured him a cup of tea. He took a sip. It was just plain water. Then she poured the remaining water back into the teapot and then poured him another cup. She told him to taste it again. Tin was confused. It still looked like normal water, and he couldn't understand what she was trying to prove. He drank it and was stunned. The water tasted sweet. She calmly explained that 287 years ago God died, or to be more precise, a god died when that god passed away. Countless points of light scattered across the world. They call those fragments God's blood. The god's blood fell into objects, living creatures, and even things born from the human imagination. Anything infused with God's blood became what they now call a divine relic. The item in front of you is one of them. Serial number God 1567 Sweetwater Teapot. Tin leaned closer, wanting to examine it more carefully. Part of him suspected she might have put sugar in it beforehand. She handed him the teapot. The system immediately detected a real divine substance. His total divinity began to increase continuously. +5. His total divinity had increased to 502 out of 500. He confirmed it instantly. He could absorb divinity just by touching a divine relic. His active skills were now fully recorded. Tin was speechless. He asked what the teapot's real function was. It makes water sweet without sugar. Can it boil water out of thin air? As he spoke, his divinity continued to increase because he was still holding it. Your guess is pretty close. She chuckled, thinking that he was clearly inexperienced with the world, and for some reason, that made him even more adorable. Tin noticed the water level didn't seem to be decreasing. He wondered if the teapot was infinite. She was impressed that he actually used his brain. He kept receiving notifications of +5 divinity points. He stopped counting when he realized he could finally activate his skill. As an outstanding student of Thantan-affiliated high school, I expect you to understand what that means. He thought about it and looked back at the Sweetwater teapot. A perpetual motion machine. Something capable of overthrowing the fundamental laws of the universe. He even wondered if the endless power source in the inner belt was related to divine relics like this one. She told him not to overthink it. The nature of a divine artifact is inherently illogical, something that no man-made object can replicate. He asked her why she proactively told him all of this. It was because 3 days ago he had defeated a monster with the body of a normal person, even when faced with such a terrifying and alien creature. He didn't show any fear. She handed him her business card. It read, Vu Corporation's Divine Artifact Research and Recovery, LLC. She was the CEO of the company. She was also the designated equipment supplier for the White Fruit team. Mentally, he had surpassed most people, which was why she hoped he would join. Vu Corporation's Divine Artifact Recovery Company. And since our boy would get the chance to absorb divinity, he was really excited to join her team. He promised to follow all her orders. To him, a Divine Artifact Recovery Company wasn't just a job. It was a god-tier workplace that he absolutely had to get into. As for me, I really like it when our main character is this smart. A Divine Artifact Recovery Company sounds like a place where he would be, surrounded by divine artifacts all day. Just the thought of it made him excited. Wealth and power. That's a perfect combination. Currently, his only source of divinity comes from divine artifacts. The passive skill Duel Life alone is already this overpowered. If the active skill is even more ridiculous, then no one in the world will be able to defeat him. That thought made him laugh out loud. Vu Tin could tell. He was deep in his own fantasy world. She took a document out of her bag. She handed him the contract and told him to look it over, and if there were no problems, he could sign it. He read through it and saw it was like a standard employment contract except for one addendum, a confidentiality agreement. There was also a clause stating that the work involved a special, dangerous field related to divine artifacts, which meant there were serious risks. If he was disabled or passed away while on the job, the company would pay his family $5 million to cover medical expenses, funeral costs, and other expenses. But there was one condition: if the accident was caused by his own intentional actions or gross negligence, there would be no compensation. That alone told him this was not a safe job. She explained that divine artifacts are divided into 4 levels: D-class harmless level, C-class dangerous level, B-class high danger level, and A-class, the highest danger level. In the future, only when he showed sufficient growth would he be allowed to participate in jobs that were truly dangerous. He wanted to ask more about A-class divine artifacts, but she stopped him. He didn't need to think about that yet. A divine artifact of that level isn't something one person or even one company can handle. When that happens, official government agencies get involved. He asked her why she chose him even though he had been exposed to a divine artifact before. That didn't mean he was qualified, and as far as he knew, she didn't know about his system panel or his martial arts training. He couldn't believe she would invite him, based solely on Voibear's one-sided recommendation. Something wasn't right. She pointed out that he was wrong about one thing. It wasn't that he had come into contact with the divine artifact, but that the divine artifact had come into contact with him. He asked what she meant. Divine artifacts seem to possess a certain degree of will. They will proactively approach people they are drawn to, and among humankind there's a special type of person who can naturally attract divine artifacts. She was one of them, and she knew that Kinko also had the same constitution as her. To show her sincerity, she offered him that salary. The contract stated that he would receive a monthly salary of $200,000. After successfully containing a divine artifact, he would receive a 25% project share along with a cumulative 1% stake. Kin realized just how valuable he really was. Now he understood why they were in such a hurry to recruit him. He said the salary wasn't that important. He was mostly just interested in the divine artifacts. Then he signed the contract. He handed the document back to her and said, "From now on, I'll be in your care." She smiled and said, "It's a pleasure working with you." He told her that if there was nothing else, he would be going now. She said goodbye. Between the Hidden Dragon Dojo and collecting divine artifacts, his schedule was about to explode. He worried that he wouldn't have time to go to school in the near future. He sent a message to G asking him to tell the teacher that I was taking leave because he was bedridden. G replied that he should just leave it to him. Besides, with a salary of $200,000 a month, he wouldn't earn that much, even 15 years after graduation. His top priority now was simple: get stronger. Only by getting stronger would he have a chance to return. He decided to check his active skill first. While walking through the outer belt, he summoned his system panel. The divinity required to upgrade dual life, a level 1 showed 502 out of 100. Its passive effect gave him 2 lives. After dying, he could freely choose a time to revive within 7 days with a 3-month cooldown. The active skill was no longer locked. The unlock requirement was 502 out of 500, which he had already met. The system asked if he wanted to activate dual life, and he chose yes. Now at each level he could assign an ability related to his body. When activated, that ability would produce a doubling effect. The available options were memory, physical defense, physical strength, reaction, speed, movement, speed, calculation, ability, and concentration. In short, if he chose physical strength, he would gain double strength when dual life was activated. He already had revival armor, so doubling his defense seemed pointless. His body was already tough, and his main attack style relied on targeting rather than brute force. Then a saying flashed through his mind: in the world of martial arts, speed determines the winner. He chose speed. He needed a proper comparison first, otherwise he wouldn't know how truly powerful this skill was. From where he stood to the lamppost ahead, the distance was about 100 meters. He decided to run it once without the skill and time himself. He started running. The result was 10.24 seconds. Not great, but not bad either. He decided to activate the skill and run again to see what the difference was. He returned to the starting point and ran again this time. He was so fast he left only a streak of light behind. His time was 5.12 seconds, exactly twice as fast. Now he understood that twin life wasn't just some gimmick. It was the real deal. For a normal person, improving a 100-meter sprint time from 20 seconds to 12 seconds is achievable through hard work. But to surpass that point, every improvement of 0.1 seconds requires 100 or even 1,000 times the effort. Without extraordinary talent and immense resources, it's nearly impossible. Theoretically, in a high-intensity duel where the slightest mistake means death, activating the skill would create an acceleration that completely defies logic and intuition. It would be a guaranteed finishing blow. He was very satisfied with twin life. It ignored the laws of physics and natural limits. This made it a truly divine rule-breaking skill. While his body was still warmed up, he wanted to try it a few more times, but to his surprise, the skill had entered its cooldown period. Only 20 seconds had passed since activation. He realized he would have to use this ability very carefully in the future. He also had no idea when it would recover. With that thought, he decided to head home. After training all day, his entire body ached by the time he got home. He planned to take a shower first, then enjoy a long, peaceful sleep, since he still had to go to the dojo tomorrow. Suddenly, his vision went dark. The next day, he was lying outside near the stairs when his phone rang and woke him up. He realized he'd been asleep for 6 hours. He had no idea why he had slept in the hallway. The first thing he did was check on Twin Life's recovery. His eyes lit up when he saw it was almost fully restored. He quickly figured it out. Every 1 second of using Twin Life required 1,000 seconds of cooldown. If he used it to its limit, it would take about 6 hours to recover completely. Just then, a message popped up from Sun Ung, asking why he hadn't shown up for practice yet. Only then did he remember he was late. He rushed off immediately. He finally arrived at the Dragonway Dojo. He pushed the door open and burst in. Sun Ung, who was helping a student with stretches, saw him. She immediately ran over and spoke. "You're just in time." She grabbed his hand and pulled him into the center, announcing that they would spar to demonstrate the proper use of internal energy. The other students began to whisper among themselves. They started placing bets on who would win. One was confident it would be Sun Ung, thinking that she only lost last time because she was careless. After all, Qin had just started learning martial arts. There was no way he could win again. Some even hoped she would go easy on him and not break him. Qin knew that even though she called it a demonstration, in reality she was trying to reclaim the reputation she lost last time. And this time she wouldn't be careless. But that didn't bother him. For him, this was the perfect opportunity to test his own abilities. After a brief "please guide me," he activated Twin Life Level 1. She was preparing to launch a palm strike at him, but he vanished in an instant. The next second, he grabbed her arm and threw her to the ground. The impact left her stunned. She couldn't understand how she still lost when she had clearly used her full strength. He calmly declared that she had let him win. Received plus 97 combat experience. He also received plus 81 physical experience and plus 49 wellness experience. On top of that, his marksmanship experience increased by 26, sports experience increased by 69, and his sports skill leveled up to level 29 out of 500. Only then did he realize something important. This was no longer considered a case of the weak defeating the strong. After activating the speed of Twin Life, the system no longer judged him as weaker than Sun Ung. Sun Ung had rich combat experience and was on full alert, yet she still couldn't react in time. That made him realize just how terrifying his power had become. From now on, his training would focus on completely mastering this speed difference. A moment later, Fuang waved to him and asked if he wanted to practice the hidden dragon energy together. "No," he said. He had accepted an invitation from 5 of his senior brothers. At that, Fuang was in complete disbelief. He had thought the rumor about Qin learning the hidden dragon energy in one night was just an exaggeration, but now he could see it clearly. Qin had nearly cultivated dragon energy. When Fuang first practiced this technique, he could only last for half an hour. The comparison was ridiculous. However, he did explain something important in the world of martial arts. There is a legendary ultimate physical state. It's called the treasure body. It means refining one's physical body into a true treasure. In that state, the body achieves 5 types of perfection: dragon elephant muscles, iron tree tendons, crystal clear skin, indestructible jade bones, and blood of molten gold. Dragon elephant muscles means muscles so powerful they seem to contain a flood dragon inside. Iron tree tendons refers to tendons as resilient and rooted as iron trees. Crystal clear skin means skin that is flawless and without pores like polished glass. Indestructible jade bones means bones refined into immortal jade. that cannot be broken. And blood of molten gold refers to a state where when Qi is activated, the blood boils like volcanic lava. Fu Kuang admitted that it was just a legend. No one had ever actually achieved it. Deep down, however, Qin felt differently. Just because others couldn't do it didn't mean it was impossible for him. That thought sparked something inside him. He wanted to become a martial arts legend himself. Suddenly, someone burst in through the window. Fu Kuang was completely terrified by what his eldest senior brother had just done. Shards of broken glass flew everywhere. Fu Kuang quickly introduced Qin to the man. He explained that this was the dojo's strongest, eldest senior brother, Kai. He also had many quirks. The system informed Qin that Kai dislikes talking, is a musclehead who hates trouble, believes that force is supreme, obsessively protects his wife, and hates using the main door. Fu Kuang added that Kai prefers to enter by breaking windows. When Qin looked in the shattered window, his eyes widened. He couldn't believe Kai had jumped from the ground all the way to the top floor. Qin couldn't help but wonder how much power that required. Fu Kuang asked their eldest senior brother if he was here to see him. Qi just waved his hand and Fu Kuang immediately understood. Fu Kuang told Qin that he had some things to take care of and would leave first. Before going, he reminded him of something important. The essence of the hidden dragon energy is channeling and shaping force. Then he left by jumping straight out the window. Only then did Qin realize something. Lately, you've only focused on increasing the amount of your qi, never once thinking about shaping it. With a new idea formed, you began trying to combine it with your aiming ability. 3 hours later, you took a deep breath. You continued to meditate until your veins bulged from the strain. Then you flicked your finger. An explosive force burst outward, creating a shockwave in the air. You realized it was far more impressive than shooting pebbles from the roadside. Someone approached, clapping slowly. It was the master of the dojo. He never expected that besides Qin's outstanding physical talents, you also possessed such remarkable athletic ability. He gave Qin a pill and told you to eat it. You took it and without hesitation placed it in your mouth. The master then told you to look at him. You felt something strange. It was as if you were drifting into a void. You no longer knew where you were or what your master had done to you. The pill began to glow, transforming into a golden dragon, and you immediately panicked. The dragon slowly opened its eyes, the golden light reflecting in your own. Then you saw it golden scales began to form on your right arm. You felt a headache as if the qi in your body was running wild everywhere. You wondered if it was because of the pill. You took a deep breath trying to calm the qi. You then activated the hidden dragon art and held your breath. Deep in your consciousness, a wonderful sensation arose. At the same time, all your distracting thoughts appeared. The dragon stood right in front of you. You focused on your cultivation, and the dragon's body slowly coiled around you. Soon, golden light flooded everything as you merged with the dragon. Your body transformed, covered in dragon scales. Your eyes also changed, becoming like a dragon's. You met the requirements and activated the visualization skill. Visualization level 10 out of 300. Finally, you opened your eyes. You were shocked to find yourself back in your real physical body. Your master explained that if you hadn't returned in time, your qi would have been completely depleted. He said it was truly unbelievable that you could cultivate dragon qi. On your very first try, he was genuinely impressed. You then asked what dragon qi actually was. Your master explained that dragon qi is a type of emotion. When someone is angry, they can strike with greater force. When fighting for survival, their bodies can feel filled with endless energy. In the hidden dragon art, stimulating emotions is called active qi, while controlling emotions is called calm qi. If you can combine the active and the calm, then anything can be achieved. You asked how you should practice it. Your master smiled, saying that you had already grasped the essence, but he still told you to think it through for yourself. You asked if it was a state of being undisturbed or distracted. You tried it. Suddenly, you could recall everything you had seen and learned in your past life. You even saw a math problem from your college entrance exam. You hadn't studied for it back then, but now it seemed unbelievably simple. Other pieces of knowledge also surfaced. Only then did you realize something: you had become smarter. Your master calmly replied that this was just a small part of it. You noticed that ordinary things could no longer stir your emotions. At the same time, Sandees, your imagination had become much more powerful. You could now clearly visualize a giant dragon in your head. Even its mane, a single whisker or a golden scale appeared, vivid and sharp. You suddenly had a moment of realization. This must be the true nature of visualization. Your master pointed out that mere talk is useless, only practice can bring true understanding. He then told Ching Xiao to spar with you. She was still eating bread, her face covered in crumbs. Your master explained that Ching Xiao's control over her movements is the strongest among all the disciples. Even her father can't compare to her. You became curious who was stronger, her or your 6 senior sisters. Ching Xiao took a fighting stance. You attacked, but before you could even act, you were hit. You were stunned, unable to believe it. Your master laughed, pointing out that your intentions were too obvious. You couldn't believe it. She was even stronger than your golden hand. You charged again this time, completely determined to win at all costs. You were hit repeatedly. Whether your tactics were low or vicious, it didn't matter. In martial arts, the one left standing wins and the one on the ground loses. She kicked you hard, sending you flying. Blood trickled from your mouth, but you still wanted to continue, so they kept going. The sun had set on the horizon, but you still refused to stop. This time you dodged her punch. And finally, you landed a blow on her chest. The impact pushed her back. You were stunned by the strange sensation left on your hand. Your master quickly caught Ching Xiao, preventing her from hitting the wall. He declared that day's training session over, because Ching Xiao was clearly hungry, so continuing the spar would be pointless. He told her to go rest first. You asked why your 4th senior sister never spoke. Your master explained that something had happened to her when she was a child, but he said he would explain the details another time. Then your master asked how you felt and whether the training session was effective. You answered honestly. You said that you were exhausted. The system informed you that your stamina was 827 out of 2,000, health preservation was 468 out of 800, and jogging was 699 out of 2,000. You added that you had never been this tired in your entire life, but at the same time you had never felt this happy. Your charisma was 66 out of 1,200, aiming was 567 out of 800, combat was 520. Out of 800, athletics was 217 out of 1,200, and visualization was 251 out of 300. You realized just how fearsome your 4th senior sister was. Sparring with her for over 4 hours had crazily increased your experience. From now on, you planned to shamelessly stick to her. After that, you returned home. You brought some fried chicken back for Feng Na, but she wasn't there. It was already late, making you wonder where she had gone. Just then, he heard a strange noise coming from the bathroom. Qin was confused. Feng Na didn't bring any guests home. There was only one pair of shoes at the door. He wondered if she was in there. A terrible thought crossed his mind. What if someone had trapped her in the bathroom? He remembered she mentioned having enemies, which made him worry. So he burst into the bathroom only to find her calmly taking a bath. She panicked and splashed water everywhere. He quickly stopped her, saying that if they kept wasting time, the fried chicken would get cold. Her eyes immediately lit up. They ended up deciding to bathe together. She sat in his lap while he helped scrub her fur. Between the fried chicken and his help, her mind was a complete mess. The system detected a surge of affection towards Qin. He received plus 89 charm points. The cattail ring began to glow. She placed a paw on his chest. Qin squinted as the light grew brighter. Slowly, he opened his eyes. The paw had turned into a hand. He held his breath as Feng Na transformed into a human. She still had cat ears and a tail, but the rest of her was clearly human. She panicked, jumping up and screaming at him not to look. Her tail wrapped around his eyes. He told her to calm down. She asked if he was telling the truth. He said he wasn't lying and told her to stand up first so they could talk properly. Suddenly, she felt a strange jolt run through her body. He asked what was wrong. She quickly said it was nothing, blushing. She asked why she had turned back at this particular moment. Qin guessed that they might have accidentally triggered the relic's transformation. That got her attention. Then she realized something. Just a few moments ago, she had developed a little bit of affection for him. Qin asked if a small spark of emotion plus fried chicken was enough to turn her human again. No, the trigger condition sounded ridiculous. She also noticed her cat ears, sharp fangs, and tail were still there. That only made her more annoyed with the useless trash left behind by the so-called god. She warned Qin not to get any funny ideas. This was clearly an accident. She stopped mid-sentence. She felt something change. She noticed the reaction on his body. Qin sighed and explained that it was an involuntary response, not something he could control. But if she didn't leave soon, he might actually lose control. She told him she would move her tail and leave, but he had to close his eyes. He agreed. As she carefully backed away, she slipped and fell. The sudden movement brought them too close again, and their sensitive areas touched. Her face turned as red as a tomato. The sensation was too much for her to handle. Qin gritted his teeth, trying to hold on to his last bit of self-control. He told her to move slowly because if she kept struggling like that, it would be very hard for him to hold back. She cried, insisting she didn't do it on purpose. He knew that. He told her to get out quickly while he still had control of himself, otherwise she wouldn't be able to leave at all. That completely scared her. She bolted for the door and slammed it behind her. Qin finally relaxed. Only then did he dare to open his eyes. 1 hour later, he came out of the bathroom and saw she had turned back into a cat. She didn't understand why. After calming down, she had automatically reverted to her old self. Now she couldn't turn human again, no matter how hard she tried. The situation left her bewildered. He sat down next to her and reached out to pet her, but she dodged him. He understood her reaction, especially after what had just happened. He told her that he had recently met someone knowledgeable about relics. Tomorrow, he would go ask about her specific situation. Maybe there was a way to help her turn human again. She began to imagine what she would do if she transformed one more time. She would torture him. The thought made her laugh wickedly. Qin could only sigh. The next day, because Qin went to bed early and woke up early, his wellness points increased by 38, upgrading him to level 3. 3 out of 800. Feng Na was curled up beside him. Seeing her sleep so peacefully, he couldn't help but smile. He got up when his phone vibrated with a message. It was from Yu Qing. She told him to come quickly. There was work to be done. Qin felt relieved. He finally had work again. At the Qingcheng library, Qin looked for Wu Yu Qing. She told him to come quickly, but she wasn't there. He didn't see anyone else but a girl with glasses. Then he realized something. The girl with the glasses was Yu Qing. Her appearance had changed a little. Then she took off her glasses. That's when her appearance returned to normal, but it seemed even more enhanced. She said his consciousness intensity was quite high. She hadn't expected him to find her so quickly. He also noticed just how charming she looked. Noticing this, she cleared her throat. Qin, feeling embarrassed, quickly looked away. She told him that the glasses were a relic. Relic 1280 mundane glasses. They reduce a person's presence, making them harder to notice. He asked if that was all they could do. When he touched them, the system detected divine matter, and he absorbed divinity. Not only that, but once the glasses are removed, the suppressed presence explodes instantly. The longer a person wears them, the more radiant they become when they take them off. He felt relieved. He hadn't suddenly turned into a pervert. It was just the glasses. He asked her about the job. She said she wanted to show him this first. This mission was very special, a sea-level retrieval mission that normally wouldn't be assigned to him. But this relic 11,105, the crown of the wicked's glory, can continuously amplify the wearer's primal desires. The current wearer is a woman named Enva Ying. Once she sees a handsome man, she can't control her desire to possess him. He realized these glasses were prepared specifically for him. She said his foundation was already solid. He just needed to wear the glasses first. The moment he takes them off, he would completely ignite Enva Ying's desires. At that point, it would be very easy to remove the crown of the wicked and return her to normal. The mission would be his. His face wrinkled in disgust as he realized they wanted him to use a honey trap. However, he admitted the job suited him perfectly. He could drain 2 divine objects at the same time and still be safe. The glasses suit you well. You imagine wearing them for 15 seconds, then taking them off, picturing how ridiculously cool you'd look. You ask if she owns the glasses. She says no. She borrowed them from another retrieval agency. You're surprised to learn there are others, and she catches herself realizing she shouldn't have mentioned it. You thought their agency was the only one in the country, mysterious and high class. She says you've misunderstood. Artifact retrieval agencies are special, but if she had to describe them, they're no different than garbage collectors. You tell her the comparison sounds a bit tragic. She explains that there are thousands of known artifacts, and they can appear anywhere at any time. One agency can't possibly handle them all. Besides, the work is extremely dangerous. You ask if they cooperate with other retrieval agencies. She says no. The government has outsourced the retrieval work to them, and some agencies will do anything for money. If you run into people from other agencies, she warns you have to be careful. You say you understand. You tell her you want to test its effectiveness. She asks what you mean. You take off the glasses. Her heart skips a beat. and her cheeks flush. The system announces you've gained 19 charm points. Effectiveness confirmed. Highly effective. In the car, you read through the files. They're about Lu Heiwan. Her main area of operation is the South District, a place teeming with bars, dance halls, and host clubs. It's a classic hunting ground for a gangster matriarch. According to the file, Lu Heiwan took over the territory, thanks to the physical stat boosts from the Crown of the Wicked. She even formed a small gang called the Rose Gang. Every day she preys on the local men, draining the life force from countless men while the Crown of the Wicked continuously amplifies her desires. The stronger her desires become, the more her physical strength is enhanced. If no one stops it, the Crown will continue to stack its effects without limit. You just need to remove the Crown of the Wicked and she should return to normal. The problem is how to pull it off cleanly. A while later in the South District, the driver tells his passenger to get out through the back door. As Tin steps out, he continues to absorb divinity. 79%. Down the same street, a man is being beaten with a club. The attacker laughs loudly, saying how great it feels to do whatever you want. The woman with him agrees. She says she loves doing whatever she pleases, and if anyone dares to control her, she'll give them a beating. Tin looks at her and thinks that this old hag is completely delusional. He suddenly realizes this is Lu Heiwan. An old man tells her to take care. She asks who said she was going anywhere. She asks where his 2 sons are, as she hasn't seen them today. The man jokes that if she's looking for a man, he can call one over for her. With a sly grin, she says she wants them both. Tin ducks into a corner as soon as he realizes she's an old hag. He decides he'd rather die than try to seduce her. A few thugs appear. One of them says that with Brother Duan on the case this time, that crazy hag Lu is done for. Tin sees they're here for revenge. He decides to hide and watch for now. The leader of the Blade Gang, Doan Kai Bin, yells at Lu, saying he's heard she's been getting very arrogant lately. Lu Heiwan, leader of the Rose Gang, asks who he is. One of the beaten men tells her it's Doan Kai Bin from the Blade Gang. They blame Kai Bin for their beating. She looks him up and down and says his physique is pretty nice. She asks if he wants to play with her. That infuriates him. He throws a punch, but she easily dodges it. He demands she give back his territory. She continuously weaves past his punches. Tin learns that this used to be the Blade Gang's turf until Lu's Rose Gang took it over. That's how the feud started. To him, this is clearly a gang war. The Blade Gang members charge in, mocking her for only knowing how to dodge. The Rose Gang jumps into the fray, and then one of them is hit in the head with a brick. Lu fumes when she sees what happened to her boy. The man she was talking to earlier is the boy's father, and he panics when he sees his son get hurt. That completely ruins her mood. Kai Bin smiles. Finally, she's getting serious. He unleashes his true skill. This time, his attack connects, and she smashes into a wall instead of stepping back. Her eyes light up. Now she really wants to fight him. They charge at each other, and the scene explodes into utter chaos. Tin realizes this thug Kai Bin is no simpleton. He straightens his palm into a blade, his hand becoming sharp enough to slice through steel like it was mud. Even so, Heiwan only gets a shallow scratch. In terms of pure martial skill, Kai Bin is far more skilled than her, but she's absurdly resilient. No matter how he hits her, he can't seem to really injure her. She lands a blow with her club, causing him to cough up blood. Tin receives a notification. Divinity absorption complete. Movement speed has been activated. He can now choose between physical strength, physical defense reaction, speed, calculation, ability, concentration, and memory. Last time he chose speed, so this time he combines it with strength, curious to see how much stronger the upgrade will make him. He picks a target and flicks a pebble. It shoots off like a bullet. When it hits Kai Bin's leg, the bone shatters on impact. Tin can tell immediately this was no small power-up. Lu looks around trying to find who attacked, screaming for them to show themselves at once. Kai Bin, on the other hand, is enraged. He thinks she was the one who sneak-attacked him and decides to retreat. Before leaving, his men warn her that they'll be back for revenge. She admits that his punches were actually quite painful. Tin steps out from his hiding spot. She asks if he was the one who did that. Ting admits it was him. She then asks if he's carrying a gun. He replies something like that, and he assures her he won't use it on her. He can tell right away that she has no real fighting technique. Anyone could see she'd never had proper training, so he decided to face her head-on without blowing his cover. If things got ugly, he planned to take off his glasses mid-fight to subdue her. She laughed and said the only place he could handle her was in bed. Ting closed his eyes and focused his aura. The energy he radiated startled her. For the first time, she felt he might actually be very strong. She asked who he was. He calmly replied that his name was Ting. Ting activated twin life. He moved like a blur. He kicked low straight in the torso and slammed her to the ground. The impact shattered the surface beneath her. She barely had time to react before she saw his fist coming. It smashed right into her face. He followed up with a barrage of punches, each one landing squarely on her face. The final punch sent her flying deep into a wall. The impact was so strong that even Ting felt his fist tremble. The noise had attracted a crowd. People whispered, "I wonder if they're filming a movie." Even the wall crumbled, and some people worried Lo had been crushed underneath. People began to wonder who Ting really was. She got up absolutely furious with this kid. The crown on her head radiated a sinister aura. She said that he had really pissed her off. On the other hand, Ting was enjoying the fight. She swore she would beat him to a pulp. She swung her staff, but he dodged it. He kneed her in the face. Blood poured from her nose, but there was a chilling smile on her face, even after taking a hit like that. That was because she had grabbed his arm and said that he wasn't going to get away now. She was stunned when he calmly placed a finger on her forehead. Our ultimate GigaChad protagonist activated his aim mode and flicked her on the forehead. The force was absurd. She dropped her staff, clutched her face, and screamed that her eyes were in agony. Ting recalled his master's words, "It doesn't matter if you're despicable or cruel as long as you win. Any move is valid. Only the one left standing has the right to speak." And it's not just men. Women also have a weak spot between their thighs. He kicks her there. She groans and collapses in pain. As she's bent over Ting clasps his hands together, raises them above his head, and then brings them down on her head with all his might. The blow sends her crown flying. The impact causes the ground to collapse, and she smashes her face right into it. The crown rolls away across the rubble. The members of the Rose Gang who witnessed everything have their legs trembling so much they can barely stand. Tin picks up the villain's glorious crown. The system detects a divine substance and immediately begins to extract its divinity. After he takes a picture of it, he reports to Dukan that it has been successfully recovered. He glances at Lo and hopes she won't suffocate with her face down like that. As for punishing her for all the evil deeds she committed while wearing the villain's glorious crown, he decides to leave that to the people she oppressed back in the day. He notices the absorption speed has increased. He's about to check his screen for any changes when a man in a suit calls out to him. Our protagonist turns his attention toward the voice. The man demands Tin hand over the object, saying he's not worthy to touch it. The divinity absorption has reached 71 out of 100. This is a critical moment. Ting can't afford to be interrupted, so he calmly asks the man what he would do if he refused. The man emits a terrifying aura and asks if Tin wants to die. The man glares at him as system panels appear. Estimated body level 1.7 to 1.9. Body mutation rate under 1%. Traces of martial arts cultivation detected. No clear body part specialization. Combat mode incalculable. Comprehensive danger level 2.1 to 2.5. The man estimates Tin is only 16 or 17 years old, probably living somewhere. Tin like the rural outer belt. But his level has already surpassed 2. Even so, he's still too weak. As he approaches Tin, he says he'll give him one last chance. But then, Tin aims a kick straight at his crotch. The man curses him for being a despicable fighter, who uses dirty tricks every day so he's always on guard. But to his surprise, Tin suddenly runs away shouting that the man is a pervert because no normal person would be on guard against that move. He yells for him to stop threatening to kill him. Tin wonders if this man is a containment agent from another company. There's something wrong with his body. It's rigid like mechanical parts bolted together. The man lunges to grab him. He almost catches Tin, but Tin twists away and keeps running. The man clicks his tongue in annoyance. Tin knows he can't mess with this guy any longer. The divinity absorption is already at 81 out of 100. He is suddenly punched through a wall. He barely manages to block with his arms, but the impact still sends him flying through several more walls. He realizes that no matter how far he runs, this man will eventually catch him. The system informs him that the divinity extraction is complete. The Shadow Flame skill is inactive, and the divinity required for activation is 539 out of 500. All conditions have been met. The system asks if he wants to activate it. He presses yes. The man demands Tin hand over the item, promising he'll only break one arm and one leg and spare his pathetic life. He's stunned when Tin suddenly covers his mouth. At that moment, he realizes Tin is a vessel. Tin wonders if the man is talking about him. Another voice replies that there's no one else. He notices the black flames surrounding Tin and the strange aura. That's when he realizes he's facing a vessel. Tin has activated Shadow Flame Level 1. Divinity required for upgrade 39 out of 100. Its effect is very simple. Transform shadows into tangible dark flames. Divine Incarnation remains locked, requiring 2,000 divinity and level 10. He only has 39. Tin notices that as soon as the man saw the black flames, he immediately associated him with the word vessel. Tin doesn't understand why or what a vessel is. He sees the man trying to flee, but he can't let him escape. He throws the black flames at him. The man screams at him to stay away. Tin still doesn't fully understand what's happening. He just moves on instinct and the dark flames surge forward. It feels like an automatic attack system similar to floating cannons. The man curses loudly as the flames rain down on him. Tin watches him coldly. The flames seep into the man's nostrils. Tin is startled as the man begins to scream in agony from multiple parts of his body. He carefully observes the burning man, and the sight makes Tin vomit. The system announces, "The weak has defeated the strong," rewarding you with plus 452 combat experience. The notification appears again, plus 633 combat experience. Physical experience increased by plus 422 and plus 558. Physique has been upgraded to level 6 at 28 out of 3,000. Health cultivation has been upgraded to level 4 at 25 out of 1,200. Marksmanship has been upgraded to level 4 at 102 out of 1,200. Combat has been upgraded to level 4 at 805 out of 1,200. And athletics has been upgraded to level 5 at 127 out of 2,000. He examines the body. As a part of the clothes burns away, he sees metal underneath. Only then does he realize the man's entire body is covered in artificial skin. Its durability is extremely high after being burned for so long. It shows almost no signs of damage. If he hadn't just destroyed him from the inside, killing him would have been much harder. In comparison, although the stone looks hard, it was turned into that state after only a short time. Tin realizes that the damage caused by the black flames seems to be related to the target's density. Even so, there are no signs of carbonization on the stone's surface, and it feels cold to the touch. That means the black flames don't actually possess the properties of real fire. Suddenly, the black flames covering his body are extinguished. He checks the system. It explains that the black flames are converted from shadows, now that the surrounding darkness has diminished. The dark flames have also weakened. He quickly understands the larger the area of shadow around him, the more dark flames he can convert, and the stronger they become. He dispels his shadow. Tin found it interesting to be able to use his skills this way, without even receiving any prompts, and he had no idea how the cooldown time was calculated either. For now, he decided not to think too much about it. As for the burnt man, he planned to explain everything to Vu Tin first. Meanwhile, in Nam District, a man was looking intently at a large slab of meat. He gently caressed it, then spoke to Bin, asking if he knew why he had been summoned. It was Kai Bin. He had lost an arm and was wrapped in bandages, kneeling on the floor. He replied that he knew because his master had warned him many times not to cause trouble. Yet he did it anyway. He was startled when the man in front of him suddenly vanished. A moment later, the man had him by the head, angrily demanding why Kai Bin had caused trouble, even when he knew the consequences. The man asked Kai Bin if he was tired of living. Kai Bin immediately begged his master for forgiveness. The man ordered him to stand up, then asked if there was any news about the two they had sent out earlier. Kai Bin replied that they had been eliminated. The man asked if Bak Na had done it. Kai Bin reported that one of them was injured by a kid. That answer annoyed the man, which made Kai Bin even more afraid. He hurriedly explained that the kid was Tui Tin, just an ordinary person. The man flew into a rage, demanding to know how an ordinary person could defeat them. Even if the test subjects were imperfect, they still weren't something a normal person could mess with. He ordered Kai Bin to capture the boy. He would personally feed him to the Great Mother Centipede worm. That way she would give birth to more better children, and one day he would conquer this planet. Ting arrived at the Tantung Library. He had caused a huge disaster on the mission, and he had no idea how Vu Tin would handle it. He decided not to dwell on it. He'd cross that bridge when he came to it. At worst, he could just make up for it with meritorious service later. The elevator stopped on the 7th floor. The moment the doors opened, Vu Ngoc-tan bowed. She apologized, saying she never expected things to get so out of control. She admitted that leaving him to face the danger alone was a serious dereliction of her duty. Tui Tin was completely taken aback. Vu Ngoc-tan said she would upgrade the mission to C rank and provide additional compensation. She hoped he could accept it. Tui Tin agreed without hesitation, though he was very confused inside. Her reaction was nothing like what he had imagined. As they walked toward the seats, she told him that the identity of the man he killed had been confirmed. The man's name was Chu An Khan, a C-rank containment specialist, Boise, from the Thu family's containment company. She had contacted them, and they claimed it was his personal action and had nothing to do with the company. Tui Tin found that explanation suspicious. Chu An Khan was a man. Tui Ting didn't understand why he would need the villainess's crown. She took out a map. She said this was what had been bothering her too. The Thu family's containment company is located in the inner ring. It's ridiculous for them to send someone all the way to the outer ring for a mission. On the surface, their statement is flawless. However, she believed there was more to this incident. She told Tui Tin to leave everything to her and advised him not to get too deeply involved. He understood. He almost forgot to hand over the villainess's crown. He also asked if she wanted the glasses back. She told him to keep them, that he might need them for the next mission. Then she said that compared to everything they had discussed, the strangest part was Chu's autopsy report. And Khan? Every single internal organ in his body had vanished without a trace. She asked if Tui Tin had done it. The shadow fire was too dangerous. Even though he didn't fully understand how it worked, he decided it was better to keep it a secret. He took off his glasses and with a calm smile said he couldn't tell her. Her face immediately flushed red and her heart began to race. She quickly replied that if he didn't want to say, he didn't have to. Everyone has secrets, and she respected that. Then she told him to put the glasses back on. Instead, he put them away. It was just a holy relic after all. Then he asked what she had given him. She explained that it was a containment card, with it carrying out containment missions. Would be much more convenient in the future. Tui Tin felt a huge sense of relief when he realized this. It meant he had been officially recognized. She confirmed it with a snap of her fingers. Hidden doors along the floor slowly opened. She told him that in addition to the privileges of an official employee, all the data stored in the library would now be fully accessible to him. She still had things to handle, so she told him to go on in and look around for himself. He waved goodbye and told her to take care. The first thing on his mind was to find clues about the cattail ring. He stepped into the aisles. Looking around, it felt like entering a different world. All the data was categorized by Holy Relic. He spotted Holy Relic 018, the unreasonable favor of the Death Goddess. He'd never seen it before, so it caught his attention. He swiped his card. Access denied. Insufficient clearance. He tried another one. Holy Relic 069, Cinderella's 9 boys. The number was far enough back that he thought he might be able to access it, but the result was the same: access denied. He tried a few more holy relics, but still couldn't get access. He kept wandering the area until he was exhausted. Nothing worked. Even though Vu Ngoc-tan had said everything here was completely open to him, a sense of disappointment began to creep in. If that was the case, then the cattail ring might also be restricted. Still, he decided to keep searching. Finally, he found it. Holy Relic 1391 cattail ring. He said a silent prayer as he swiped his card. The data opened. He almost breathed a sigh of relief. The Holy Relic's danger level was listed as B, which didn't match Tui Tin's C-rank containment specialist status, so he could only view the first 2 layers of data. He had always thought this Holy Relic only turned people into harmless kittens, yet it was ranked on the same level as relics capable of destroying an entire city block. He pulled out a chair and sat down to read the file. It stated that after wearing the ring for a month, the wearer could freely switch between human and cat form. He liked that. It sounded incredibly convenient. Another entry caught his attention. 1 year, a doctor screamed fanatically after seeing the cattail ring and later founded an outer god cult. That piqued his curiosity, so he searched for information about outer god cults after the death of the earth caused fissures to open up and vast borderlands appeared from the cracks. As humans explored these fissures deeper, they discovered tools that could communicate with the alien gods, attracting groups driven by a thirst for power. Gathered together and prayed to the outer gods for blessings. These groups came to be known as the Outer God cults. Those who received gifts from the Outer Gods were called recipients. Now he finally understood what a recipient meant. He flipped the page. 200 years ago, an Outer God cult called the Holy Lion Cult, Choni, tried to contact the god Bastet. The god never responded until a believer obtained divine artifact 1391 and turned into a cat, finally receiving the goddess's blessing. But the blessing didn't go to that believer. It went to the divine artifact itself. From that moment on, the cattail ring gained even more mysterious powers. As the fusion process progressed, the wearer would gradually possess Bastet's power until they eventually became the real Bastet. His blood ran cold. The Holy Lion cult would stop at nothing to get the cattail ring back. That could only mean one thing: they would kill Feng Na. Now he finally understood why back then. Feng Na had urged him to go to the dojo. He could already imagine what would have happened if he hadn't been able to get stronger in such a short time. He was afraid they both would have died. He turned the page and started reading about the fusion conditions for Divine Artifact 1391, the cattail ring. The first fusion requires intense emotional stimulation. After that, the wearer must continuously stimulate the same type of emotion to deepen the fusion process. As he read those lines, the incident from before replayed vividly in his mind. He shook his head hard, trying to banish the memories. They had become too vivid. His expression darkened as he realized they might have to repeat the same thing frequently if she wanted to turn back into a human. He didn't know how he was going to explain this to her. He continued reading and noticed more details in the book. Divine Artifact 1391. The cattail ring had no side effects. The artifact only bestowed divine authority and nothing else. The only real danger was the Holy Lion cult. That scared him for a moment, but knowing there were no side effects was still good news. He turned to the next page, hoping to find out what kind of power Bastet possessed, and how to remove the ring once it was worn. He was surprised to find no answers to these crucial questions. The authority level of a C-rank probation officer was simply too low to access that information. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was a notification from the bank. He had received 231,511.31 currency, bringing his total balance to 235,212.25. At first, he thought it was his salary. Then he realized it was the compensation money from Wu Qing, and he hadn't expected it to be so much. Now, with this money, he wouldn't have to carefully calculate what to eat every day. He could spend more time training and getting even stronger. He planned to buy some expensive ingredients and cook a lavish meal for Feng Na. And when the time was right, he planned to tell her the condition for turning back into a human. 5 days later, the table was filled with expensive dishes, and Feng Na was eating to her heart's content. She asked why he had been so extravagant lately. Then, she asked if he had earned some money. He replied that he used to be rich, which only confused her more. He explained that over the past few days, he had been learning a technique from his master, called the Chen armor technique. The technique itself wasn't the problem. The issue was the cultivation process. He had to drink medicine while training, and after each session, he needed to take a medicinal bath. Just one set cost 40,000. Now his bank balance had dropped to 8,011.03. He had trained with a total of 5 sets over the past few days. He never expected 200,000 to disappear so quickly. After doing the math, she said there should still be over 30,000 left, so she asked why there was almost nothing left. He pointed to the food on the table, which made her feel a little embarrassed. She admitted that his generosity was praiseworthy, but she still warned him to be more careful with his money. Besides the medicines he had mentioned, he would later need to buy weapons and hidden weapons. Moreover, he'd need proper formal attire to enter high-end venues. Any single outfit would cost over 100,000 to start. He thought the price was insane. She told him that buying lobster or other luxurious ingredients once a month was more than enough. Only then did he realize how many ways there were to spend money. Payday was far off, and Wu Qing probably wouldn't arrange a job for him anytime soon. If he didn't find a way to earn money, he was afraid he'd be starving again, so he started looking for a job. He texted Fuang and asked if any place was short-staffed. Since money was tight lately, he said he was willing to work as a bodyguard, a delivery person, or a porter. Fuang replied that he had come to the right person. He told him to come to the Hidden Dragon Dojo tomorrow afternoon to see if he was qualified. Then he noticed Feng Na was still engrossed in eating. She had cleared most of the plates. He yelled at her to leave some for him. The next day at the Hidden Dragon Dojo, Our main character was cultivating. During his practice, he unlocked a new skill called soft force. Vu Kuang stood by observing and nodding in approval. In just 5 days, Jing had mastered the armor-shattering technique to this level. Such a rate of progress meant he had potential. A student stepped forward and asked if Jing could perform a demonstration. Since they were testing strength before Jing could even reply, Vu Kuang spoke up for him and agreed. He leaned in close and whispered that this was the perfect opportunity to test the results of his training and to let everyone see what he was capable of. Jing thought for a moment and decided to give it a try. A student named Wen Zhaorong, whose punching power was measured at 201.3 kilograms, spoke up. He said Jing hadn't been at the dojo for long and might not be strong in terms of raw power, so he shouldn't push himself. Another student, Yi Anwu, with a punching power of 212.2 kilograms, agreed and warned Jing not to blame them if he broke his hand later. The woman who had invited Jing Ning Meng Meng, whose punch reached 232 kilograms, told them to stop talking nonsense. She said their junior brother was extremely impressive. Jing stepped forward and punched the sandbag without any discernible force. It looked no different from a light pat. Ning Meng Meng frowned, worried that he hadn't gathered his power correctly. Zhaorong suppressed a laugh. It was so quiet that everyone thought Jing wasn't using his full strength. They mocked him, saying he was afraid of losing face and was intentionally holding back. But just as those words left their lips, the sandbag exploded. The screen on the meter flickered. Everyone was stunned. The stuffing from the sandbag was scattered all over the floor. Jing calmly said that it was soft force. He explained that strength isn't always about being stronger. What he used was an advanced application of force. First, he compressed all his power into a single point, transmitted it into the target's body, and then let it explode from within. He hoped everyone could comprehend it for themselves. Meng Meng looked at him in amazement and thanked him for the lesson. Anwu, on the other hand, clicked his tongue in annoyance. Jing told Anwu to go to the warehouse and get a punching pad to install on the testing machine. Anwu had no choice but to obey, which made Meng Meng giggle. Vu Kuang then told Jing that with his current skills, there was nothing to worry about. A big shot was recently looking for a bodyguard. The job was a bit complicated, but he asked if Jing wanted to give it a try. Jing took the document Vu Kuang handed him. Inside was a photo of the location and detailed information. The address was Riju Hotel number 617, Jinhai Road, East District. The reward was 800,000 wen. Jing's eyes lit up when he saw the number. He told Vu Kuang he'd take the job. At the Ruiju Hotel, Jing stepped out of the car. He was wearing a traditional black Chinese shirt with black pants. As soon as he entered the lobby, he attracted a lot of attention. People whispered, wondering who he was, looking at his clothes. They could tell he was a martial artist. He didn't look like a rich young master attending a party. The most logical guess was that he was hired for protection, but he looked too young. Jing overheard their whispers and realized his senior sisters were right. Clothes really do make the man. He remembered Chu San-an asking if he was planning to go out, in a black t-shirt and a hoodie. He had asked what this problem was. It was very comfortable. She told him that clothes make the man. If he dressed too cheaply, others would naturally look down on him. However, she said it was fine, because she had already prepared clothes for him. Then she pulled out a red suit from a famous designer. He immediately said it was too flashy. He argued that he wasn't going on a blind date. Just then someone tapped him on the shoulder. It was Ching Xiao holding a set of black clothes. Sanan immediately started arguing with her, calling her sneaky and insisting she was here first. Jing silently concluded that senior sister Meng was still a cut above the rest. A few women nearby noticed him and thought he was very handsome. One of them even suggested asking for his number. A man in a red beanie asked if Jing was a high-ranking disciple of the Hidden Dragon Dojo. The man in a white suit next to him replied that he didn't recognize this kid. The man in red said that the Taoist temple must have accepted a new disciple. The man in the white vest added that Dragon King Li Qi once said he wanted to accept 7 disciples, but the 7th had to be a true prodigy with extraordinary aptitude and talent. Otherwise, he'd rather not accept anyone at all. He glanced at Jing and commented that this kid looked more like a pretty boy. He wondered how strong this kid really was, and said there was no way Jing could be Li Qi's disciple. The man in red pointed out something else. Jing's stance was incredibly stable. Each of his steps, was precisely the same distance, no more, no less. His upper body didn't sway at all. His body control was terrifying, and his power generation was clearly at a very high level. The man in the white suit didn't care. He said even if Jing could use one part of his strength to create a tenfold effect, he'd still lose if he faced 100 people at once. That annoyed the man in red. He said it was useless arguing with a blockhead like him. Just then, the receptionist approached Jing politely and asked if he was the martial artist responsible for security. He introduced himself and said it was a pleasure to meet them. After that, the man explained the details of this job. 6 martial artists had been hired, each responsible for a specific area. Jing was assigned to the backstage area. The lighting there was very poor, so he needed to be extra vigilant. Jing took the floor plan and said confidently that with so many martial artists, no one would dare cause trouble, the manager said, shaking his head. But it's hard to say. Calling in more people is just a way to prevent trouble before it happens. And then he excused himself. He said that he still had many things to resolve. Jing understood that it wasn't strange to just hire more people, but hiring 6 martial arts masters means something serious is going on, and that's not all. They've also dispatched a large number of bodyguards, judging from their equipment. Qin could tell they were all professionals. The number of surveillance cameras far exceeded what a normal hotel would have. When things are unusual, there's always a reason behind it. That made him curious about what kind of incident had caused such a massive arrangement. The man in the white suit stepped forward and asked if Qin was the newly accepted direct disciple of the Hidden Dragon Dojo. Qin asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Li Jiaoquan from the Tiger Soul Dojo and assured Qin that he wasn't looking for trouble. He said that since they were colleagues, it wasn't too much to ask to get a sense of each other's skill level first. Qin asked him how he intended to do that. Jiaoquan suggested a friendly match for the martial artists to probe each other's strength. Qin immediately understood this guy thought he was young and didn't believe in his abilities. At the same time, Qin also saw this as a good opportunity to find out where he stood among them. Vu Kuang suddenly saw Qin and stopped the man, asking why Qin was here. A woman walked over and asked if he knew that handsome guy. Then another person walked in and said he'd vote for Qin. They recognized him. It was Bui Xiao. The woman next to Vu Kuang whispered that Jiaoquan was extremely vicious. She said the last time the 2 young masters Vu Kuang and him fought, Vu Kuang was put in a hold so tight that he screamed. That incident made Vu Kuang lose a lot of face. Another woman pointed out that there seemed to be no movement from the handsome guy, so she thought Jiaoquan wouldn't lose. Qin calmly explained that it wasn't that there was no movement. It's just that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to see it. Only then did they realize something was wrong. On the surface, Qin looked thin and weak, but his body had been tempered countless times. It was as hard as steel. His chi was clean and pure, far beyond anything Jiaoquan could compare to. Xiao told Vu Kuang to wait until the competition was over. Afterward, he wanted Vu Kuang to introduce him to the young hero. Vu Kuang quickly agreed. Deep down, Vu Kuang was shaken. He couldn't understand how Qin had become so powerful. The feeling was unbelievable. On the other hand, Jiaoquan felt that Qin had almost no visible chi, which made him smirk. He took it as proof that this kid was just a rookie. He told Qin to pack up and go home early. Qin could feel Jiaoquan's power. It was indeed impressive. It was clear he had trained hard for a very long time. However, compared to Qin, it was still lacking. Qin stood there calmly. He even smiled. Jiaoquan suddenly felt something was wrong. Qin's force surged without warning, becoming overwhelmingly powerful. A flash of panic crossed Jiaoquan's mind. He couldn't suppress it anymore. He struggled desperately and then, without a word of warning, his wrist broke. Qin was stunned. Just from the sound, he knew it was bad. Jiaoquan slowly pulled back his limp hand. Qin asked if he was okay. Jiaoquan forced a laugh, straightened his back, and said he was fine. He admitted Qin was very strong and said he was worthy of being a senior disciple of the Hidden Dragon Dojo. His voice showed genuine admiration. Then he said he needed to use the restroom and hurried away. Once inside, where no one was around, he cried. The pain in his hand was unbearable. Squatting in a corner, he clutched his wrist and wondered what kind of monster he had just encountered. Qin frowned. He wondered if Jiaoquan was really okay. He had clearly heard something snap. Just then Vu Kuang called out to him. Qin turned around, surprised to see Vu Kuang waving enthusiastically at him from the stage area. Qin finally confirmed that Vu Kuang really was a rich young master. All this time he'd thought the guy was just bragging. Vu Kuang laughed and said Qin must be joking. Then he explained that he was actually the son of his father and a mistress. If his eldest brother didn't look out for him, he wouldn't be living so comfortably. Qin asked him what he needed. Vu Kuang hesitated, then admitted that Qin had been amazing during their match just now. Now his eldest brother wanted to get to know him. He added that his brother was a genius who got into Naihuan University through the martial arts exam. Xiao was standing on the stage, so Qin asked if he was talking about him. Vu Kuang nodded and added that there were also some wealthy young ladies and madams who wanted to get to know Qin. He asked when Qin was free. Qin sighed. He said he couldn't because he had to work later. However, he didn't mind an introduction. Then he added that if they really wanted to befriend him, they should come to him themselves. If someone wants something, they should fight for it, not wait for it to be served to them at their door. With that, Qin left to get back to his work. Vu Kuang watched him go, completely mesmerized. He suddenly felt that Qin was unbelievably handsome. After hearing what Qin said, the girls immediately mustered their courage. If they wanted something, they would have to fight for it themselves. A blonde woman stepped forward and asked to exchange contact information with him. The others quickly followed suit. While Qin was distracted, a delivery person quietly walked past him. Qin only noticed the man after he had already gone by. He frowned. The manager hadn't said anything about someone bringing a delivery inside. Qin was about to call out to the man when the blonde woman grabbed his arm, insisting they exchange contact info. She smiled and said she would teach him many things, then winked at him. Qin felt overwhelmed. Surrounded by the crowd, he reluctantly exchanged phone numbers with them. At the same time, the suspicious man pressed a switch. A red light was activated. Qin's phone suddenly filled with static. He immediately realized something was wrong, and it wasn't just his phone. Without a word of warning, the lights went out. At first, everyone thought it was just a simple power outage. Panic spread when they realized that even their phone flashlights weren't working. Their batteries were drained instantly. They found it strange that not a single phone would light up. Someone suggested that maybe everyone's batteries were dead, but in his heart, Jing knew his phone had been fully charged. And in this darkness, with dozens of people present, not a single one could turn on their phone for light. That meant that no one could. Furthermore, all the lights went out at the exact same time. Jing suspected that any device related to electricity was completely fried. This could only have been caused by an electromagnetic pulse, a high-tech method capable of disabling electronic devices instantly. He couldn't help but wonder why their opponent would use something like this. If the goal was simply to kill people, this seemed like too much effort. Suddenly, a window shattered. The blonde woman screamed and clung tightly to Jing in the party area. The sound of shattering glass echoed. Trying to reassure everyone, someone said it might have just been the wind or that someone had knocked something over. In the darkness, their phones still wouldn't work. Another person started calling for Lao Wang, saying he was right next to him just a moment ago. Yu Guang managed to flick on a lighter. Xiao immediately sensed something was wrong. He ordered everyone not to move and told them to gather together back to back. They followed his instructions. Then they noticed something moving. While everyone's attention was drawn elsewhere, someone had been taken. When they realized what had happened, Chairman Zhang had vanished. Blood stains were left behind. The formation immediately collapsed as everyone panicked and scattered. Xiao remained calm and yelled that running around was even more dangerous. Suddenly, something flew past him. The next moment, his cheek was grazed and began to bleed. But when he looked forward, there was nothing there. He sensed an attack heading right for him and struck out before it could land. The blow connected, sending the attacker flying. But he was still caught off guard. Yu Guang shoved him aside to save him. Someone else took the blow instead. That person lost their entire upper body, and the remaining half sprayed blood everywhere. It was done by a giant insect. Xiao and Yu Guang were horrified by the sight. They screamed for everyone to run, but it was too late. There was no way out. Just then, Din arrived and attacked the monster. He asked what that thing was. The giant insect slammed into the ground, green blood spraying from its mouth. It's the same kind as that cockroach guy. Dean felt relieved. All his recent efforts hadn't been for nothing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kick it away so easily. The onlookers were stunned. He had casually kicked that monster straight into a wall. A few of them frantically looked for the other bodyguards from the dojo, but they had vanished. They had run off long ago. Yu Guang thanked Din for saving his brother. Din told him to stay back. It wasn't dead yet. The monster suddenly charged at him. Din could sense its vitality. It was much more tenacious than the last one. Had it evolved and gotten stronger, he decided to test it out first. If he couldn't handle it, he'd retreat. He wasn't about to risk his life for that amount of money. He drove his elbow into its back. The creature was sent flying across the room. A shadowy flame ignited between Din's eyes. Now it wasn't just the monster that could move freely in the darkness. After that blow, the scene before him became clearer. He was using the shadow flame's dark vision. This skill had a night vision effect. The system panel hadn't explained that clearly. If it had, he would have used it much sooner. In the darkness, both of them moved with ease. Zhao Quan stared, unable to believe it. Din was actually fighting on even terms with that monster. But Zhao shook his head. On the surface, Din seemed to be dodging just in the nick of time, but if you looked closely, Din hadn't taken a single step back. Only then did Zhao Quan realize the truth. Din was protecting them. Zhao Quan suggested that everyone should leave. Staying here would only distract Din and make him worry about their safety. The others agreed. They could call the police and find help outside. Din watched them go and felt a sense of relief. Now he could finally go all out. He looked at the monster and said it looked like it was having a lot of fun earlier, so he would play with it. The creature flapped its wings and then lunged at him. Din was taken by surprise. The monster still had a hidden trick. Its speed had suddenly increased. The monster hesitated. When Din suddenly vanished. In response, it emitted a thick black mist. Din was startled. He didn't know what was happening. A revolving lantern appeared before his eyes. It replayed fragments of his memories. For a moment, he even wondered if he was going to die at the hands of some lowly cockroach man. But that was ridiculous. After spending so much money to learn martial arts, there was no way he'd lose to something like this. Clearly, something was wrong. He felt himself fall, his head hitting something hard. When he turned his head, he saw a familiar dragon. At the same time, the monster struck his body, but it stopped dead in its tracks. A powerful force had formed in front of Din's chest. When Din opened his eyes again, they were different. His pupils looked like they were burning, and reddish-black smoke slowly seeped out. He decided to pay the monster back. He used the ultimate move of the hidden dragon-style stormtail. The moment it landed, the monster's upper half was blown to pieces. Only its lower half remained as blood splattered everywhere. Din felt as if he had just realized something. Amazingly, he noticed something else. It wasn't actually dead. He wasn't too surprised. It was a mutated creature, but at its core it was still a cockroach. Even without a head, a cockroach could still live for 8 or 9 days. He remembered its true weak point was the subesophageal ganglion. He reached in and pulled the nerve cluster out. Looking at its size, he wondered if normal cockroaches actually had something that big. He almost gagged. Ngok Quang cautiously asked if it was all over. They saw the monster had finally stopped moving. Someone announced that Din had killed it. Another person immediately asked which martial arts dojo he was from, and shouted that he was willing to sponsor him for 1 million. Someone else raised it to 2 million, and even urged Ngok Quang to introduce them to Din. The man in the red beanie appeared again and teased him. Triu Quan said that he admired him for daring to provoke someone like that. Triu Quan blushed with shame and told him to stop. Deep down, 1 million Quan felt nothing but relief for that young hero. He hadn't even used 1% of his strength when they fought earlier. Luckily, Din had held back and didn't cripple him on the spot. Din urged everyone to take this opportunity to leave, as quickly as possible. He had a strong feeling that this matter wasn't so simple. Vu Tin finally noticed Din's wound and was shocked. A man walked up to Din and asked what he meant by those words. Ding looked at him and asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Deep Tan Lam, the organizer of the party. He asked if Din was implying that the incident wasn't an accident. Ding nodded. Based on what he observed, this wasn't a normal power outage. It was an electronic pulse, and it was man-made. As for the monster, it was likely released intentionally, with the intent to kill everyone present. Tan Lam's expression darkened. He said this must be an organized and premeditated assassination attempt aimed at them, angrily. He vowed to have his father thoroughly investigate everything. Inside, Tin felt something was off. They had installed so many surveillance cameras and hired so many martial artists. They had clearly anticipated danger, but still insisted on holding the party here. To him, the problem lay with them. He also noticed that the guests who could attend this party were no ordinary people. That made him wonder, why would someone want them all dead? He could tell that Tan Lam was definitely hiding something. Ting told everyone that although the monster had been killed, the danger wasn't over. He urged them to leave, as quickly and calmly as possible. The staff guided people to walk slowly and avoid pushing. Anyone with a lighter was encouraged to use it to light the way as they moved. Fang Lam leaned in and whispered, asking Tin if he knew what that monster was. Tin replied that he was just a bodyguard. He would do his best to protect everyone's safety, but other than that, he knew nothing. At that moment, Tin realized he was being tested, and he understood that this whole affair was much deeper than he had imagined. Tin was sitting and relaxing in the hotel lobby. He checked his status panel while the others were busy, calling their families to pick them up. They wanted to go home immediately and never return to that hotel again. The system announced that he had just gone through a fierce life-and-death battle, stimulating his body's potential and helping him gain plus 1.02 physical experience. In his head, he thought, this haul isn't bad. He kept getting notifications plus 829 for health cultivation, and plus 538 for running, plus 55 for charm, plus 518 for marksmanship, and plus 121 for visualization. It was all because he had vividly imagined a true dragon sweeping through a sea of clouds. His physique had reached level 7, 135 out of 4,500. Health cultivation increased to level 5, 298 out of 2,000. Running reached level 6, 359 out of 3,000. Combat climbed to level 6, 324 out of 3,000. Visualization rose to level 4, 748 out of 1,200. Tin was very satisfied. 4-digit experience points weren't easy to come by, and he had finally met the conditions for specialization. He had a cut on his chest, and to his surprise, it was healing. He paused, confused, then realized his stats had been fully restored. After leveling up, the system announced that he had met all the requirements and could convert basic force eruption into special force eruption. He wondered if this condition came from his enlightenment of the Cloud Layer story. He also wondered if this special force eruption was related to the hidden dragon-style martial art. He decided not to think too much about it. No matter how you looked at it, special force eruption sounded stronger than the basic version. After pressing yes, the system confirmed the specialization. Force eruption reached level 6, 2,080 out of 3,000. A total of 6,880 experience points were converted into hidden dragon force, now at level 4. 1,880 out of 4,000. At the same time, a strange sensation spread through his body. It felt as if rusty parts inside him had just been freshly oiled. The force flowed through his body with a smoothness he had never experienced before. An opportunity like this was rare, so he struck while the iron was hot and started practicing the armor-shattering technique again right there in the lobby. Meanwhile, the paramedics had arrived and Tue was leading them to the injured. He started to explain what happened in the 17th floor banquet hall. He was about to say more, but then paused. Tin was cultivating in the lobby that night at the Hidden Dragon Dojo. Tin thanked San-Ung for offering to apply medicine to his chest. She asked how he got injured meanwhile, and it was supposed to be just a simple bodyguard mission, yet such a terrifying monster appeared. She sighed and said he was really unlucky. The master came and explained that the dojo's missions always involved living on a knife's edge. Accidents were unavoidable. Since his master was knowledgeable and experienced, Tin asked if he knew the origin of that monster. Or not. Ligia replied that he didn't know the details either. He only knew that the creature was very likely related to the borderlands. Tin wondered if the borderlands were the natural cracks mentioned in the data that appeared after the Reaper incident. You couldn't help but be curious about what truly existed inside those cracks. Your master advised you not to think too much about it. Surviving was already a great fortune, and as a blessing in disguise, Jing had grasped the final move of the dragon form. For a martial artist who trains on the line between life and death, adversity is the best teacher. Jing spoke with clarity as if he had grasped the essence of the hidden dragon. His master was so shocked he jumped out of his wheelchair and walked straight toward him. Jing was startled. Master Li began to examine Jing's body, and what he found shocked him so much that he staggered. He stumbled backward and fell down. He asked Jing if he had raised a dragon. Jing was completely bewildered. Even San Ying felt like they were speaking in riddles. Master Li burst out laughing, clearly delighted with what he had discovered. He explained that to conceal a true dragon capable of overturning clouds and stirring the heavens, one must first raise a young dragon within the body, and Jing had successfully raised one, inside his own body. Jing and San Ying helped him up. Jing said that after the dragon appeared, the circulation of his Jin energy had become much smoother. He asked if there were any other uses for it. Master Li replied that the dragon was not some illusory concept. It was a strand of true dragon Jin with its own spirit. He explained that practicing martial arts was no longer just about practicing techniques, but about nurturing the dragon in his body. That was the true essence of the hidden dragon style, and Jing had obtained the key to breaking his limits. San Ying asked what that meant. Master Li explained that the human body has limits. Once the 5 levels of body refinement, flesh, tendons, bones, and blood are perfected, one cannot advance any further. At that point, one needs to break that limit, which means ascending to a higher level of life. Reconstructing the physical body is the most crucial foundation. Although the person still looks human, the essence of their life is no longer human. Those who complete this life ascension are called earthly immortals by Taoists and living Buddhas by Buddhists. As long as no accidents occur, they can live for at least 155 years, maintaining their bodies in a peak state until death. Jing realized that his master's legs were probably what one would call an accident. Li told him not to worry because he had already completed a crucial step among them. The risk of failure was greatly reduced. All that remained was relentless refinement. Jing thanked his master. San Ying said she had heard her senior brother mention that Master Li was once a powerful figure who had crossed the Dragon Gate. She asked why he still grew old. Master Li replied with a grim expression, "The dragon I raised was killed." This news shocked them both. He explained that back then he lived in the northern region. Relying on his extraordinary martial strength, he acted too recklessly, not knowing his own limits. Every day he participated in martial arts duels with Bok Tuang. As a result, he offended many people. When those enemies realized they couldn't defeat him head-on, they targeted Bok Trung's wife and daughter. Blinded by rage, he could only think of revenge. Countless people tried to stop him, but he was fearless. He killed one after another as they came for him. For a time, he truly believed he was invincible. But retribution came swiftly. A Grand Master shattered his legs and destroyed the true dragon in his heart. His spirit broke and he became a cripple. Afterward, countless people took advantage of his downfall. Only Bok Tuang was willing to stay by his side. Later, to escape their enemies and protect Than Chao, they left the northern region in humiliation. That's when they came here and opened the Hidden Dragon Dojo. Jing asked if he ever wanted revenge. Li admitted that he still had a few regrets. However, his enemies were all major figures in the northern region, not some small fry he could easily deal with. Finally, he told Jing not to worry about it. It's all in the past now. And if one day Jing can step into the inner circle with his head held high, it won't be too late to talk about this then. That evening, Jing was on his way home. His phone buzzed with a notification 80,000 Chuha currency had been transferred to his savings card ending in 366. His current balance was 88,011 yuan and 3 cents. He hadn't expected the money to arrive so quickly. He couldn't help but remark that the hotel's efficiency was impressive. He entered the house and called out to Fang that he was home. There was no reply. He realized she wasn't there, or perhaps she was taking a bath again. He activated his visualization and scenes of her activities from the day appeared in his mind. She seemed to have had a lot of fun. Then he saw her climbing out through the window. Jiang immediately looked out the window himself. In the distance, he spotted 3 figures. 2 men were cornering a cat. His heart sank. She's in danger. Feng spoke to the men asking why they had come for her when she had already run away. They replied that it was because her crown, the endless dragon Anantaseza, had responded to them. She hadn't expected that at all. The men called her sect master, saying that with her superior aptitude she could surely become a vessel. Then they could use the power of the headquarters to rebuild everything. One of the men raised his hand, stopping the other from getting closer. It was clear Feng Na was on guard. When she saw Jing, she asked, "Why are you here?" Jing asked the same question. After hearing their conversation, he quickly realized these men were members of her sect. One of the men asked, "Aren't you afraid the Can Security Company will discover the existence of this kid?" The mention of the Can Security Company immediately made her tense. Of course, Jing couldn't pretend he hadn't heard that. The man hurriedly explained that if the sect master continued to stay at home, and this kid and the Can Security Company found out about it, it would surely drag him into trouble as well. Feng Na felt a wave of sadness, wondering if she really wanted to leave. Even so, the Can Security Company is truly an extraordinary existence. After the world fell into a brief period of chaos, the government lacked the strength to maintain order. So they delegated a portion of their law enforcement authority to various security companies, allowing them to build and develop their own armed forces. The Can Security Company was one of them. Unlike other companies, it expanded at an alarming rate, quickly becoming a deeply rooted giant. Now it has grown beyond its original controls. Fuang was hidden here quite well after turning into a cat, but now that the people from the Long sect have tracked her down, the risk of being exposed has greatly increased. But if the Can Security Company really comes, Qin wasn't afraid at all. He told the man that Fuang would not be going back. Fuang was deeply moved. The man asked Qin if he really believed that he could protect the sect leader. Qin replied that since nothing has happened yet, how would they know the outcome without trying? The man sneered and said that Qin had no idea about the Can Security Company. Just how terrifying it is. Someone like you won't last long. Just sending any random squad would be enough to finish you off. Fuang yelled at them to stop. She said that if they hadn't come here in the first place, then none of this trouble would have happened. She said she never wanted to be the sect leader of the Long sect to begin with. It was all because that damn old man acted on his own, enforcing this title on her and treating her like some chosen heir. If they want to receive that so-called heavenly gift or whatever, they can go get it themselves and stop coming after me. She was out of breath from shouting. She added that if something really happened, she knew Qin would protect her. She turned to him and asked, "Right." He answered, "Right." Then the two of them turned and walked away. The man clicked his tongue. Meanwhile, elsewhere at the location of the great centipede, Mother Kai Bin's master remarked that he never expected number 1 to be killed by a 17-year-old high school student. Even when Trin Shuyen was 17, he would have had a hard time defeating number 1. This made him wonder if a genius even stronger than Trin Shuyen really existed. Kai Bin replied that the situation was different. When his junior was 17, he had only been training in martial arts for a short time. Kai Bin suspected that the person in the news had probably been secretly trained by the Hidden Dragon Dojo for years, just to become famous overnight. His master told him to forget about it. It wasn't really important. Although the expected outcome wasn't achieved, at least a few people died. That would serve as a warning to the board of directors. He threw the phone to Kai Bin, who answered the call. Then the master asked about the situation with number 9. Kai Bin reported that last night it had also eaten number 7. It had only been born 10 days ago, but its growth rate was frighteningly fast. The master concluded that number 9 was now the perfect specimen, the most cost-effective. All future feeding and production would focus on number 9. He also instructed Kai Bin to find an opportunity to let number 9 out and make an appearance. He already knew the high school student mentioned in the news came from Than Tan-affiliated high school. That school was the top high school in Than Tan. He said that if an incident were to happen there, it would significantly increase public support for that bill. Kai Bin felt a chill run down his spine, but he still answered, yes. It was a beautiful sunny day. Qin was busy training in martial arts to become stronger, and someday, to solve all problems. Even if he couldn't solve the problem itself, he could at least solve the people who caused them. As he trained, he visualized himself destroying the Can Security Company. The system announced that he had completed 1 session of cultivating the armor-shattering technique. His physical experience increased by 331 points. When he activated visualization, the cultivation efficiency was significantly enhanced. Vibrating Starfire, one of the 5 great killing moves of the Hidden Dragon style, is a defense-breaking technique that sends activated kinetic force directly into the enemy's body. Thanks to this skill, Qin could break through bronze walls and iron partitions. Naturally, he wanted to master it completely. Suddenly, Fu Kuang announced that Qin had hit the jackpot. Qin asked why. Fu Kuang explained that when Qin killed the monster at the Tui Truck Hotel yesterday, he saved a group of second-generation rich kids. Therefore, the Hidden Dragon Dojo received a massive amount of donations, all from those rich kids. The master decided that every single cent of it would be counted as Qin's remuneration. The total amount came to 22 million. Qin's eyes lit up when he heard that number. He even imagined himself lying on piles of cash. He remarked that the rich and powerful really know how to behave. Fu Kuang then told him that the master said now that Qin was so rich, he shouldn't train as recklessly as before. After that, Fu Kuang handed him the plan the old man had prepared. It listed his daily consumption, 1 bowl of 10 Perfection Grand Tonic Soup, 1 bowl of Kidney Nourishing Soup, 1 bowl of Essence Nurturing Soup, 1 bowl of Mind Nourishing Soup, 1 bowl of Spirit Nourishing Soup, 4 types of inhalable tonics, 2 body conditioning medicinal baths, and 8 types of essences. The total daily cost was $208,000. Qin laughed and said it wasn't much, since he had over 20 million in hand. Vu Kuang suggested he turn to the next page, which stated that Qin needed to take 1 condensed heart-nourishing pill per week, costing $800,000. There was also an injectable steam bath medicine he had to undergo, twice costing about $1,230,000. On top of that, he needed a tendon opening massage once every 2 weeks, costing $1,800,000, and 1 session in a high-pressure stone chamber once a month, costing $2 million. Qin's body trembled. Vu Kuang told him to get ready to say goodbye to his 20 million. Only then did Qin realize that he was still a poor scholar after all. Vu Kuang then showed him something else on his phone. Qin was on the front page of the Thantan Morning News. Someone had leaked the incident of him killing the monster yesterday to the media, and now he had become the hero of Thantan. Suddenly, King's phone rang. It was an unknown number. King answered the call, and what he heard made his face turn pale. The person on the other end was scolding King for being absent from class for so long. He was reprimanded for recklessly skipping school to work part-time and become a so-called hero, while still not returning to school. King argued back that something had come up at home. Since the school's sports meet was starting in a few days, his teacher had decided to sign him up. He was assigned to run the 100-meter, 200-meter, 400-meter, 800-meter, and 2,000-meter races. In short, his teacher wanted him to represent the class. Out of nowhere, San An suddenly waved at him, so King told his teacher he had something urgent to handle and would hang up first. His teacher reminded him to be there when the time came. King then asked his 6th senior sister if she was looking for him. She told him there was a commission assigned specifically to him, and the pay was very high. That immediately piqued his interest. She explained that the client was also a martial artist. After seeing the news, the client had become curious about King and wanted to spar with him. The pay was $500,000. King's eyes lit up. $500,000 just to be a sparring partner. The next day, inside the inner ring of the North District. The North District was where most of the high-ranking government officials lived. People called them the Northern Nobles. It was said that a random person there could earn in just a few minutes what an entire household in the outer ring earned in a year. He thought that sounded like an exaggeration. Then King arrived. Just for a sparring match and to exchange a few moves, he was getting paid $500,000. It was insane. However, the rich don't think like ordinary people. To them, that amount of money was probably nothing. The house was huge, big enough to rival half the school. That's when he noticed something. Standing at the front door, Du Kuang was waving at him along with Tu. He wondered what those 2 brothers were doing here. He asked if they were the ones who had sent the commission to his martial arts hall. Theo said he had misunderstood. Someone wanted to see him, and they had asked Tu to arrange it. King shot Du Kuang a sharp glare. Du Kuang immediately explained that it wasn't his idea. His father had ordered him to do it, and he didn't dare refuse. King asked suspiciously if his father was the one who wanted to spar with him. Du Kuang said another person had asked his father for help. He looked frustrated, as if he didn't fully understand it himself. Theo suggested they explain everything on the way. He said the person was from an official organization. As for which one, he honestly didn't know. His father had only told them one thing: do everything possible to please this man. At last night's party, that man had personally asked him to arrange a meeting with King. Theo asked if King really didn't know anything. King said no. He wondered who would go to such trouble just to meet him. His first guess was the Khan security company. Before Tio opened the door, he warned King that even though he was strong, he should be cautious because the man inside might be stronger than anyone King had ever met so far. The man was huge, with a muscular build and silver hair. He looked to be middle-aged. He introduced himself as Mandrill. King could tell immediately that this man was no ordinary person. He greeted him politely and noticed the scars between his thumb and palm along with bullet holes on his shoulder. Those weren't marks an ordinary person would have. They were the marks of a soldier, someone who was used to killing. Mandrill smiled and said he wanted to make friends right away, and in his mind the best way to make friends was to fight. He leaped from his chair and charged at King. The tables and chairs beside him exploded on the spot. King clenched his fists. For a moment he wondered if this man was really from that security company. If he was, King was going to take him down. They collided in the center fist against fist. The impact was so strong that Vu Kuang's knees nearly buckled. Mandrill thought the kid's hand would be crushed. But King was completely fine. He calmly said, "Now it's my turn." Mandrill was in disbelief. He couldn't understand how that was possible. King activated Confronting Vu. He slipped behind Mandrill and drove both his elbows into his back. The blow sent Mandrill flying. He was embedded halfway into the wall. Thieu was stunned. He said that if he had taken Mandrill's punch head-on, his entire arm would have been crippled. Yet not only was King unharmed, he had countered immediately. Vu Kuang stared in disbelief, wondering just how much power King was hiding. King had judged Mandrill to be nothing more than a common rich kid. Mandrill slowly got up, his whole body trembling. He laughed and said that was an amazing punch. He asked why King was looking at him like that. Then he told King to keep hitting him. King thought the man was ridiculous, but at the same time something was wrong. The Confronting Vu attack that had sent the cockroach man flying had barely affected him. This feeling was familiar. It reminded him of Chuan Kon. So King asked if he was an augmented. Mandrill seemed surprised. He hadn't expected someone from the outer ring to know about that. He explained that his skin was equipped with a B1 protective membrane, a low-grade military enhancement. Its shock absorption capability was extremely powerful. It was especially effective against a martial artist's inner force. He asked if King was intrigued. Did he want to get one installed? King said he wasn't interested. Mandrill scoffed, saying he had met one or two people who answered like that before. That's why so many martial artists refused to accept reality. Then he charged forward, yelling at Jing to wake up, because times have changed. As he got close, Mandrill clapped his hands together. The vibration made Jing's ears ring violently. Mandrill explained that his hands had been modified to emit sound waves. Especially when they collided, it caused intense dizziness. Dodging was useless. The closer Jing got, the stronger the sound waves became. Manuel confidently declared that he would be the one to win this fight. But then Jing placed a hand on Manuel's chest, forcing him to stop. Manuel looked at him in shock and asked how it was possible. Jing suddenly closed the distance and threw a punch. A powerful blow straight to Manuel's chest. A loud bang echoed as golden energy exploded outward, cracking the ground beneath Manuel's feet. Because Mandrill's dermal membrane was so tough, Jing simply poured his internal energy directly into his body. Pain ripped through Mandrill from head to toe. Jing calmly said that it doesn't take much power to knock someone down. A light tap is more than enough. The speaker on Mandrill's chest announced that his consciousness had been disconnected. It seems Jing, who was supposedly no match for him. Jing realized a communicator had been installed in his body. He asked who they were and what they wanted from him. The voice replied that he should wait because they were on their way. Jing told them to hurry up as he was very busy. The voice assured him that they wouldn't keep him waiting long. Thieu rushed over, demanding to know what the hell they wanted. Vu Kuang guessed it was some kind of rookie test run by a mysterious organization. Jing said his imagination was too wild. Vu Kuang insisted that it really did look that way. Mandrill heard them and tried to hold back a laugh. Jing told him to get up if he was already awake. That's when Mandrill groaned, saying that it really hurt. He asked how Jing had managed to break his technique earlier. Jing explained that the core of his sound wave technique was to shock the brain, so all he had to do was use a stronger force to cancel it out. At that moment, Mandrill realized this kid still hadn't used his full strength. He told the two brothers to go play somewhere else. He admitted the Bowie brothers were right. He was a member of an official organization, and he wanted Jing to join them. Jing flatly stated that he had no interest in joining any secret organization, especially after meeting him. If it was a legitimate organization, they should have invited him openly instead of playing games and testing him. He said he was very unhappy with the organization's style and had absolutely no intention of joining. However, deep down he knew that even if they had asked properly, it wouldn't have made a difference. He was content with his current life, peacefully practicing martial arts and staying safe, and occasionally taking on containment missions to upgrade his divine skills. It was comfortable, suspiciously comfortable. Mandrill got a little flustered and told him not to be so quick to refuse. He admitted his methods were a bit reckless, but joining them would bring benefits with no downsides. First, there's the protective membrane, something that no amount of money can buy. If Jing joined, he could get one for free. Jing retorted that even with it, Mandrill still got hurt. Mandrill said Jing was a genius, but sooner or later, he too would discover the limits of the human body. That wall. The point where you can't advance any further will drive you mad. Jing agreed, then refused again. He said it sounded more interesting to use his original body to crush those modified freaks. Mandrill's patience snapped. This kid simply wouldn't listen to reason. The speaker suddenly blared, telling Manuel to shut up and bluntly stating that his recruitment skills were terrible. Manuel froze in surprise, hearing his captain's voice. The captain told him to look up. A figure was falling straight from the sky. Jing activated his targeting skill and immediately recognized her as Void Blade. They both shielded their eyes as she landed, dust and debris kicking up around them. She greeted Jing and assumed he still remembered that she was the captain of the White Fang Squad 838. Then, she casually explained that the gorilla next to him was one of her squad members. Jing leaned in close and whispered, asking why she was trying to recruit him. When she was the one who had introduced him to Yu Qing. She replied that this time the order came from her superiors, and besides recruitment, she had a second mission. She asked if he knew the origin of the monster he had killed a few days ago. Jing said he only knew it was a creature from the borderlands, nothing more. She nodded in agreement, saying it had characteristics of the borderlands, such as possessing a core. The core is the source of power for borderland creatures, but it's not necessarily located in the heart. It can be in the limbs, fingernails, or even the skin. As long as the core remains intact, they can revive indefinitely. Jing felt relieved that he had accidentally destroyed it completely back then. It was blind luck. Since it had a core organ, he asked why. She said it wasn't exactly the same. She projected a holographic image of a 1,000-legged broodmother, a creature from Borderland F056, also known as the Carrion Lake. Its danger level rating was up to 6.2. Jing asked what this danger level meant and what 6.2 represented. She asked back if the Outer Ring dojos don't even teach basic classifications. Voidblade asked the gorilla to send over his combat data from earlier. Mandrill grumbled that he wasn't a gorilla. Then he tapped the side of his temple, and a soft beep sounded. She received the data and saw that Jing's current danger level rating had reached 2.93. A normal adult male has a danger level of 0.1. Jing's 2.9 means he was equivalent to 1,280 normal men, while the 1,000-legged broodmother was equivalent to 65,000 people like him. Jing admitted that was dangerous enough. She added that this was just an extreme case. An unawakened 1,000-legged broodmother has a danger level of only 1.8, and its main function is reproduction. The broodmother can absorb the genetic information of anything it eats and produce corresponding insect species. It can even eat different creatures and merge their genes. A month ago, a smuggling ring captured a 1,000-legged broodmother from the Carrion Lake and smuggled it out. After receiving intel, they pursued the smugglers all the way to Tintin's southern district, then lost the trail. And now, thanks to Jing, they finally have a lead. Jin asked if the cockroach monster he had killed was born from the celestial centipede specimen. She confirmed that he was right, and because the monster was a roach man, Jin realized it was created by fusing a cockroach with a human. The thought sent a cold chill down his spine. Voidblade knew he had realized that the roach man's power had been continuously increasing. She suspected that whoever was controlling the celestial centipede specimen was constantly refining it, and Jin, who had ruined their plans more than once, had become their target. Jin understood now. Then, he asked if the invitation was to protect him. She said no. He was only 17 years old, but his talent was exceptional. More importantly, he had the courage to face the borderland creatures head-on. Backed by an agency with the most professional and advanced training system in all of Zhuhai, they could fully unlock his potential in every aspect, with no blind spots. Jin knew her offer sounded perfect. Unfortunately, he already possessed a training system that surpassed everything else from the very beginning, so he refused. Voidblade could only sigh. She could roughly understand his way of thinking. Then she offered a compromise. Jin could become an external contractor for the White Crow Squad. When needed, they would entrust him with missions and he would receive corresponding rewards. Mandrill, listening on the side, was completely stunned. Jin became suspicious. The terms were too generous. He asked if their agency possessed any divine artifacts. She replied that they did. One of their internal research departments was the Divine Artifact Research Institute, which housed many divine artifacts. As long as he accumulated enough merit, getting one wouldn't be difficult. His eyes immediately lit up. He agreed on the spot with excessive enthusiasm, declaring he had been a fan of the White Crow Squad for 15 years and that becoming an external contractor had always been his dream. They shook hands to seal the deal, then Jin got in the car and headed home. Mandrill asked his captain if all of this was really necessary. Jin was just a rare martial arts genius, but not unheard of. Whiteblade replied that Jin was not that simple. Yesterday, she had contacted the eldest daughter of the Wu family again. The importance she placed on Jin was far beyond what Mandrill could imagine. Mandrill asked if she meant Wu Yuting the natural inheritor. He couldn't believe it. Yuting had always been looking for a way to get rid of her status as an inheritor. She once said that only a god can fight another god. Besides the divine artifacts, Jin was the only thing she truly cared about. For that reason, Voidblade suspected he possessed some special quality they hadn't discovered yet. She said that even if they didn't know what made him special, they had to keep him around. By the time Jin was heading back, it was already sunset. During the ride, he quietly looked out the window watching the scenery. Even the most prosperous districts couldn't compare to a single street in the North District. Suddenly, he received a message from Yuting. She told him to come to the library when he had time. He replied that he would be there soon and told the driver to go straight to the library. Not long after he arrived on the 7th floor, she told him to sit down. As soon as he sat down, he took a sip of the drink in front of him. It was awful. He told the hostess to prepare something better next time. He wondered how much this woman truly loved that sweet water kettle. Just how much could she love it? She asked if he disliked the tea made from the water created by his favorite divine artifact. He suggested they have Coke instead. She said she already knew the White Crow Squad had contacted him. He replied that they had invited him to join White Crow, but he had refused. She said he made the right choice. He asked why. She explained that crows are usually seen as ominous creatures, birds that signal disaster and death. White crows, on the other hand, symbolize rebirth and benevolence, bringing good fortune. The name carries beautiful wishes. However, the reason for choosing that name is very grim. The mortality rate in White Crow's operations is extremely high. Since its founding over 65 years ago, only 3 members have survived safely to retirement. Jin agreed that it was indeed dangerous. He made a mental note to be very careful with any future jobs from White Crow. The revival effect of his twin life only worked once in a short period. And then he asked about the background of the agency itself. She explained that its full name is the Special Bureau for Abnormal Disaster Emergency Management. After the new era began, the state established this organization to deal with various abnormal disasters. It operates independently of the 5 major agencies and is often called the 6th agency. If Jin had joined White Crow, even if he went on a massacre in Ching or went completely crazy and set off a nuclear bomb, no one would have the authority to arrest him. He finally understood just how terrifying the power of the 6th agency was. He asked if the government was worried about it getting out of control. She said there was no need to worry. The agency has 13 high-ranking officials, and almost all of them live in the imperial court. Ah, so now I see, he thought. That means the 6th agency is essentially a country of its own. Jin realized just how truly vast its influence was. Then she told him the main reason she asked him to come was simply to remind him about the White Fang matter. Now that he understood their background, he was free to leave. He asked if she had any missions for him. She said no. He asked if she was going to show him any divine artifacts. Again, she said no. He asked if that was really all there was. Model. So she added that if he really had nothing better to do, he could help clean the library. That made him spring to his feet and quickly say his goodbyes. Suddenly, his communicator rang. It was that bastard. He had completely forgotten about it. He answered the teacher's call, saying he'd be in the South District soon. Kai Ping's master sat on a rickety staircase, his expression grim, a man who looked like the Joker. He reported that all the test subjects had been moved. The master said that he didn't expect Bai Ya's nose to be so sharp, to the point where they actually sniffed out their location. He asked about Kai Ping's situation. The rocker replied that on the master's orders, Kai Ping had taken number 9 to the Trin Lai branches. They were waiting for news. Only by using number 9 as bait to draw Bai Ya's attention could they safely continue the transfer of the Tianzu worm sample. Otherwise, the thing was too conspicuous and would be easily exposed. The rocker added that the Khan Corporation wasn't helping at all. They were forced to rely entirely on themselves. The master scoffed, saying that big corporations are always like that, They just want to reap the fruits of others' labor without lifting a finger. If things fail, they lose nothing, and that's precisely why it's now their turn to act the same way. His disciple said that if this succeeded, that crooked company might just burn the bridge after crossing it. The master calmly replied that he'd already considered that. He had prepared a backup plan long ago. If anything happened to them, that crooked company wouldn't get away unscathed either. Meanwhile, someone had snuck onto the school grounds. In his eyes, the students were nothing more than fresh meat. If he could capture them all and offer them to the Worm Mother, he would be greatly rewarded. He noticed the girls cheering excitedly for Din. Looking in their direction, he saw a boy running on the field and wondered if that could be Din. In his mind, Din looked like an ordinary teenager. He doubted someone like that could defeat a test subject, but it didn't matter. Soon, things would get much more interesting. For now, he continued to pose as a janitor. A student glanced at his muscular build and wondered if he was new. The girls erupted in cheers as Din won. Guy handed Din a bottle of water and asked if he really still wasn't interested in girls. Ding simply replied no. He then asked how many events were left for the day. There was the 400-meter race, the 2,000-meter run, and the relay. He asked about the relay, and Gay explained that it was also a running event. So the teacher had signed Din up for it too. He quickly added that he wouldn't drag him down. Suddenly, Din felt something was wrong. He smelled blood. He activated his targeting skill, and he saw a roach man inside the school eating people. The creature moved through the campus like a tiger charging into a flock of sheep. Ding told Gay to call the police immediately and clearly report that a roach man had appeared in the school. Then he told him to run as far as he could, and not look back. At the entrance of the lecture hall, dismembered bodies were scattered everywhere. The roach man spotted fresh meat, a female student trembling in a corner. It slowly approached the helpless girl. She could only brace herself in despair. Suddenly, someone charged in. It was Din. He slammed into the roach man, knocking it back. The creature did a flip and immediately got back up. Din yelled at the student to get out of there. She thanked him profusely and ran without looking back. Din decided to wear it down first. He activated life double and speed double. He focused all his power into a single point. He shattered its shell, then sent it flying. It crashed through several walls. Someone stumbled out from a nearby room. It was a janitor. He begged to be saved, stammering that he had completely lost control. Din recognized him immediately. It was Kai Ping. Din couldn't understand why he was here. Kai Ping said he was from the Fang Dojo and needed to find his master to deliver an urgent message. But the roach man had returned and it completely ignored Din. Kai Ping froze in terror. Before he could even let out a scream, he was devoured. It happened in the blink of an eye. Din realized that without life double, that moment could have been the end for him. His finishing blow from earlier hadn't actually taken it down. After devouring Kai Ping, the monster turned towards Din. He watched its wound close at a terrifying speed. It let out a roar and charged. It was incredibly fast, but Din managed to dodge at the last second. The creature spun around as Din evaded, but a tentacle still grazed him. Something was clearly wrong. Compared to the roach man he fought at the Du Truc Hotel, this one was bigger and tougher. The spikes on its arms and legs were larger, and even the antenna on its head had become deadly weapons. Din suspected its genes had been further optimized. He could see this battle turning into a war of attrition. He grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and threw it. The monster sliced through the fire extinguisher. Pressurized gas sprayed everywhere, obscuring its vision. Din seized the opportunity and attacked. He picked up a steel rebar and plunged it straight into the monster's head, making it screech in pain. It spread its wings. Din was shocked it could still move after that. Then it vanished. It began to circle him at high speed, clearly trying to confuse him before launching a surprise attack. But he didn't expect it to be capable of tactical thinking. He closed his eyes and entered a visualization state. Since he couldn't predict the angle of attack, he decided not to rely on his sight at all. Using his visualization ability, he tracked its movement path, and then he found it. A familiar feeling rose within him. It was the same feeling as when he understood the tale of the Cloud Stepper. Even so, he activated a killing technique from the Hidden Dragon style, his scales turning a golden hue. He knew just how critical the situation was. With this much chaos at the school, the White Fang squad was bound to arrive sooner or later. He chose to stall for time, trying to hold on until they got there. The school was already destroyed. Void perception hovered in the air. Flying with her anti-gravity dragon wing boosters, it had been less than 5 minutes, and the entire school was already in ruins. She realized King might be in grave danger. A helicopter flew overhead. Void perception immediately warned it to avoid a vortex that had formed nearby. Shan Jiao reported to the captain that the lecture hall had collapsed. He asked if they should still go down. Void perception activated her ability. She detected someone inside. Looking closer, it was King. The data was instantly synced with the whole team. She decided to save King first. The rest of the team would capture the child of the heavenly centipede matriarch alive. Shan Jiao noticed her pull out a booster made of dragon bone and wondered why she would bring such a crazy piece of equipment to a mission like this. She wondered if the earlier energy storm had been caused by the cockroach monster. She entered the building. She gently tapped King on the shoulder. He reacted violently, swinging his arm at her, but she yelled out that it was her. He froze. He let out a sigh of relief when he realized who it was. Then, as if all his strength vanished, he collapsed. But she caught him. She gave him a fast-acting painkiller. He warned her not to let her guard down. The cockroach man was extremely strong. She noticed strange marks on his neck. She told him not to worry, she hadn't come alone this time. She'd brought the entire White Fang squad. They charged straight at the cockroach man. Shan Jiao felt proud of King for the groundwork he'd laid for them. A woman with a lollipop in her mouth snapped at him to stop talking nonsense and focus. The monster's attack was coming. The cockroach man attacked. Shan Jiao thanked her for the warning as he charged forward. Suddenly, the cockroach man coughed up blood. A deep gash had appeared on its side, cut by the long-haired woman. Void. Perception called Shan Jiao an idiot, reminding him that she'd told him to attack from the correct angle. She told him to watch closely. 10 daggers flew up, hovering around her as she charged the monster. Then she brought them down in a relentless rain of blades. The cockroach man's body shattered like glass. She was cutting it to pieces. King watched and mumbled that they were true professionals. He saw her blades striking the weak points at the joints with perfect precision. Just a slight cut was enough to make the entire cockroach monster crumble and shatter. That's when he truly realized she was on a completely different level. Despite having its limbs severed, the cockroach man was still alive. Void perception ordered ZU to staunch the bleeding. They couldn't let it die. They needed it alive to track the heavenly centipede matriarch. Then she told Cao Jing to write the mission report. In the meantime, she also instructed her to send a request to the higher-ups for a tracking device. Shan Jiao walked over to King and asked why he looked so banged up. King replied that he was lucky they'd arrived in time. Shan Jiao said that was a given. As soon as the captain got the call, they immediately took a helicopter from the South District to get here. He added that the level of importance the captain placed on King was extraordinary. King asked if they'd found anything in the South District. Shan Jiao replied that they had searched less than 1/3 of the area and had no results so far. King said he had a few leads. Void perception immediately wanted to hear them. He explained that he suspected the cockroach man had been brought into the school by someone named Duan Kai Ping. King said Duan Kai Ping was the leader of a local gang, and his appearance at the school was strange enough on its own. On top of that, he had disguised himself as a janitor. It was hard not to think it was a setup. Void perception said this information was extremely valuable and told King to report it to the higher-ups immediately. She was about to turn away. Then she realized something was wrong. Her expression changed as she urgently told Xiaojing and IU to fall back. The dismembered body was starting to piece itself back together. IU froze in shock. She was stabbed straight through while Xiaojing barely escaped. The cockroach man walked away as if nothing had happened. Manrio thought it was super regeneration, but void perception corrected him it was molting. They saw it trying to escape, and that was something they couldn't allow. King borrowed a knife from her. She asked what he was planning to do. He activated Life Twin and Speed Twin. Then, he threw the knife at the escaping monster. Void perception's jaw dropped when she saw it. Manrio couldn't believe what he just saw. King had thrown an object with the force of a depleted uranium armor-piercing round using only his own body. The cockroach man began to fall. King casually said it was because Void Perception's knife was good. That answer annoyed her. That knife was worth over 10 million. Meanwhile, King was thinking about how he had also used Life Twin, but was still powerless against the cockroach monster. That's when he truly understood how important weapons were. His arm had turned purple. He also realized that using that move came at a heavy price. Void perception told him to come back with them so they could take him to the hidden dragon dojo first. Other matters could wait. King agreed. Simply circulating his chi wouldn't be enough to heal an injury like this. He still needed the help of his senior brothers and sisters. The thought made him sigh. He knew he was going to get scolded again. As the helicopter took off, they talked about losing another member. Xiaojing asked the captain if she wanted to report to the higher-ups and request more reinforcements. Void perception replied that it wasn't necessary. She said if a few more people died, the team's casualty rate would skyrocket and her year-end evaluation would drop. King overheard the conversation and felt uncomfortable with their nonchalant attitude towards death. He knew he would never get used to it, even if he lived another lifetime. System notifications kept popping up. Because he had endured a potential life-or-death battle, his body had been stimulated. Plus 1.367 physical experience. In the same battle, you delivered a finishing blow to defeat the enemy and felt an intense rush of excitement, increasing your health experience by 939 points. You also executed a perfect strike. Pushing your precision to the limit increased your marksmanship experience by 1,211 points. Your marksmanship has leveled up to 6 with 198 out of 3,000 points. Hidden Dragon Chi increased to level 5 with 232 out of 5,500 points. Visualization increased to level 5 with 121 out of 2,000 points. You realize that this growth, while painful, is strangely satisfying. The helicopter continued its flight. Since Qin's marksmanship skill had leveled up, he guessed his vision would be improved while in the air. He looked down and could clearly see the cars below. He found it ridiculous that his vision was now even better than binoculars. If he combined this with Hidden Dragon Chi, accurately hitting the target from kilometers away would no longer be a fantasy. The next time he faced a monster like that cockroach man, he wouldn't need to get close at all. His chances of survival had increased significantly. The results from the southern city were quickly sent over. The investigation team had used their equipment and confirmed that the contamination level there had exceeded 10%. Qin didn't know what the contamination level meant. She looked at him with disbelief and asked if he really didn't know anything. She wondered what they taught in the outer ring. She used a simple metaphor. Her left hand represented the world they lived in, and her right hand represented the other world. When the two worlds collide or overlap, contamination is created. If it's just a light collision, an impact occurs, and the contamination level usually stays at 15%. But once a true overlap occurs, the contamination level will skyrocket to about 10 to 30%, and at the same time, the physical laws of that area will begin to change. Creatures from the other world can even enter the real world. Qin asked if that was how the borderlands were formed. She shook her head. The borderlands are only created when the contamination level reaches 100%. They are neither the real world nor the other world. To define such a place, humanity gave it a new name. They call it a subworld. An overlap could happen in the southern city at any moment, so she warned him not to go there recklessly. Qin understood. He finally returned to the Taoist temple where San An immediately scolded him. She said he never gave people peace of mind, always returning, covered in injuries. Even Than Zhao was angry. They applied medicine all over him. San An warned him that if he did this again, they wouldn't take care of him anymore. King tried to explain that it wasn't on purpose. He was forced into that situation. She didn't believe him. She hit him, and he quickly told her to be gentle. She insisted that he needed to remember this pain. His entire arm was bruised. She didn't know how long it would take to recover. He explained that he didn't want to get hurt either, but he had no other choice. In that situation, he was the only one who could stand up and fight the cockroach monster. San An pressed her elbow into his back, making him beg her to be gentler. She told him to endure it. This was the only way she could channel medicinal power into his body with her chi. But her chest ended up pressed against his face, and he quickly turned his head away to avoid it. Compared to San An, he felt Than Zhao's chi control was much more refined. The ointment slowly seeped into his skin, and not only did it not hurt, it actually felt comfortable. That is, until he felt something was off. The master walked into the room and froze. Than Zhao was on top of Qin, her chest pressed against his lower back, while San An was still pressing her elbow into him. Both girls immediately blushed with embarrassment. The master had heard that Qin had successfully cultivated the golden scale. For him to be this heavily injured, he couldn't imagine how strong the monster must have been. Qin asked him if he knew about the Golden Wind Taoist temple. The master nodded. He was familiar with it. Its master Trio Hong Nguyen had exchanged moves with him when he was young. Back then, the Golden Wind Temple claimed that their cultivation method could turn limbs into blades. The saying, "unarmed is equivalent to armed," piqued his curiosity, so he found an opportunity to challenge them. Tin was astonished to hear that he had fought more than one opponent. The master explained that when their disciples saw their master being beaten, they naturally rushed in to help. Unfortunately, their internal energy wasn't sufficient. They couldn't break through his golden scale skin and were knocked down one by one with a single punch. However, he admitted that the sect did have real strength. If Tin ever faced them, even if his opponent seemed unarmed, he would have to treat them as if they were holding a blade. That said, the master knew. It wouldn't affect Tin much. The golden scale of the hidden dragon art completely countered the golden wind white rainbow sword of the Golden Wind Temple at the same level. They wouldn't be able to break his defense. And if the opponent's cultivation level surpassed his, then just being careful wouldn't save him. Tin suddenly realized that Lu He had used a divine artifact to enhance her defense earlier. That's why Kai Bin couldn't injure her. That made him wonder what Kai Bin's actual rank was in the Golden Wind Temple. A moment later, San An told him to turn over because his back was done. It was time to treat the front. As Than Zhao prepared to continue the treatment, the master immediately excused himself, saying that healing with cultivation techniques consumes a lot of stamina. The young man knew something was wrong. Tin suggested that he could handle it himself. She asked him what nonsense he was talking about. They told him that what he needed most right now was to relax and leave everything to them. This made him blush. Tin might not have any interest in romance, but he was still at that awkward stage of development, and situations like this naturally made him uncomfortable. He closed his eyes and instead focused on his martial arts techniques. San An giggled when she noticed how stiff he had become. Their hands moved methodically as they applied the medicine, and the warmth that spread through his body made him feel much more comfortable. He only felt a slight unease when a fingertip brushed past his waist. So when he opened his eyes and saw Than Zhao leaning in very close as she worked, it felt like a sudden test of his composure. San An had noticed his reaction. Than Zhao noticed, too, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Tin hurriedly explained that he didn't mean it, and that his body had just reacted on its own. He apologized. San An said that in his current state they couldn't continue the treatment. Embarrassed, he insisted that he would finish the rest himself. They agreed and left the room. He wasn't sure if any of that was intentional. An hour later, after circulating his energy for a long time, the skin all over his body still felt numb, not itchy or painful. Only then did he realize just how badly he'd been injured this time. After all, it was all because he hadn't fully understood the skill known as the Golden Scale Transformation, which uses kinetic force to link the dermal membranes of the entire body, dispersing and neutralizing attacks. By spreading the force across the entire skin surface, the pressure at any single point is significantly reduced. Now he finally understood the secret behind the skin's unparalleled defensive power: the Golden Scale. He also understood why his master said it was a complete counter to the white rainbow blade technique. That technique relies on blade-like kinetic force with an extremely small point of contact. Against a defense capable of dispersing pressure, such attacks naturally become ineffective. It was truly worthy of being one of Anne's killer moves, Long's style. None of the techniques were simple. The moves he had yet to master were blood refinement, essence exchanging, fire and tendon, refining, eye piercing, lightning. But he was in no hurry. Right now, healing was the top priority. Tin returned home. Feng Na spotted him as soon as he walked in. She waved at him and asked why he was so late, then she casually asked if he'd brought back anything tasty to eat. Tin froze when he saw her. She had returned to her human form. He found it strange because according to the library records, returning to human form required a specific method. She explained that around noon she suddenly realized she could transform back on her own, but she said that she would be leaving soon. So she decided to stay and keep him company for a while. He asked why she was leaving and if she felt uncomfortable here. She said that staying by his side would only bring him danger from the Can Long Tong security company and possibly other threats she didn't even know about yet. She took his hand and said that during the days she spent with him, she was happy every single day. She felt carefree, just like a real cat, eating, playing, and sleeping, never having to think about any complicated matters. But she was still the sect master of Long Tong, and she knew it was time for her to leave. The tears welling up in the corners of her eyes didn't escape Tin's notice. He pulled her into a hug. He said that if he abandoned her just because she brought danger, then he'd be no better than a piece of trash. He told her to stay no matter what dangers lay ahead. He intended to face them with her. She asked if she could really stay. As soon as she heard his answer, her face lit up with joy and she hugged him tightly. The system notified him that someone had developed a large amount of affection for him. This caused his charm skill experience to increase continuously. At first, it was only plus 668 experience, but another notification quickly followed with plus 784. A third window popped up right after that. Plus 851 charm skill experience. His charm skill advanced to level 7, reaching 131 out of 4,500 points. Tin was stunned. Normally, when girls looked at him, the most he'd ever gain was a few dozen points. That's when he realized something. He became serious and told her he needed to discuss something important. Curious, she listened carefully. Through their conversation, she learned that whenever her emotions became intense, it would deepen the fusion process with the cattails, pushing it to a state known as reincarnation into Bastet. He added that it wasn't just any emotion. It had to be the same kind of emotion she felt during their first fusion in the bathtub. That revelation shocked her. Her face flushed and she grew wary. She asked what he was planning to do. He quickly clarified that it wasn't what he wanted. It was entirely up to what she wanted. She instinctively backed away from him. Tin hastily explained that he was just asking if she wanted to try actively receiving the power. She asked what he meant. He explained that all known individuals who had transformed into Bastet showed no abnormal signs. They had simply gained power. Since they had made an enemy of a large organization like the Khan Security Company, they needed as many protective measures as possible. She was surprised that he had thought things through so thoroughly. She asked if the information about the cattail ring was reliable. Tin replied that he didn't believe the source had any reason to lie to him. She suddenly pushed him down and said they should try it immediately. A panicked Tin told her to wait. She explained that he shouldn't misunderstand. She just believed that more power meant more safety. Ting said she didn't need to explain. He understood. She asked how they should proceed. He suggested recreating the conditions from that day. She blushed, but after a moment she nodded. They got into the bathtub together and carefully recreated their previous posture. The sensation was so intense that she gripped his hand tightly. When everything subsided, she wondered if it was over. The cattail ring began to glow. He reached out and touched it, absorbing the divinity within. It was then he realized that promoting the fusion between the cat and the cattails actually created absorbable divinity. Thinking about it, it made sense. Enhancing the fusion meant extracting the power belonging to the foreign god Bastet, who was sealed inside the cattail ring. His divinity absorption increased to 33 out of 500. A foreign god was still a god, so naturally it also possessed divinity. She said she felt a little stronger. He felt it too. With his current physique, even if an ordinary person used a knife, they might not be able to leave a mark on him. He said that just now when she had scratched his hand. Her skin had been torn, but now only faint marks remained. She immediately apologized and asked him if the enhancement was limited to just her physical body. He encouraged her to feel again and see if any other abilities had awakened. At this point, his divinity absorption had increased to 102 out of 500. He secretly wished the absorption rate would speed up. She raised her hand, revealing her claws. This technique is called Serpent-Slaying Vanguard. The Wildcat war goddess Bastet has many titles, and one of them is the Serpent Slayer. She slew the Serpent of Chaos Apep, gaining the power to counter anything related to snakes. His curiosity was immediately piqued. Then she calmly pointed out that dragons and snakes look almost the same, adding that his hidden dragon style was also within its range. Her counter. She reached out and touched his scales. Chui Din couldn't believe it. He had practiced a dragon-related technique and somehow given himself a built-in disadvantage. He quickly explained that it couldn't be right. This technique is just called the hidden dragon style. It's not a real dragon. He asked if that would still count as being countered. She proudly said that this is how god-level abilities work. They don't need to be logical. Even techniques with the word dragon in their name fall within the scope of her counter. Chui Ding thought that was completely absurd, but then another thought popped into his head. With this ability, as she could torment the dragon sect in any way she wanted. She realized he was right. She didn't have to listen to them anymore. If they dared to come looking for her again, she would make sure they had an unforgettable experience. A sly smile spread across her lips as she laughed. Chui Din pinched her cheek and told her to stop, then said to leave future problems for the future. Afterward, they went to sleep. She returned to her cat form and slept peacefully beside him. Chui Din had only promoted the fusion of the cattails once, yet he had obtained an astonishing amount of divine matter. In total, he had received 309 units equivalent to an entire golden sacred artifact. It was only then that he truly understood what divine matter was. If divine matter is the source of a sacred artifact's power, then logically any sacred artifact drained of it should lose its power. But in reality, the sacred artifacts he absorbed divine matter from showed no change at all. It was incomprehensible. He decided to stop thinking about it and instead focus on upgrading his skills. Twin Lives advanced to level 3. It cost 9 out of 500 divine matter to upgrade its passive effect. It granted 2 lives after death, and he could freely choose the time of resurrection within 7 days. The cooldown was reduced from 80 days to 70 days. Just as he expected, each level reduced the cooldown by 10 days. That made him wonder if it reached level 10. Would resurrection become infinite? The system then gave him a choice: physical defense, reaction speed, calculation, ability, concentration, or memory. He paused, unsure which passive effect to choose. 3 days later, at the Hidden Dragon Dojo, he focused on enhancing his physical defense. When he threw a punch, the impact spread outwards in visible ripples. 3 days ago, he had chosen to enhance his physical defense. Although reaction speed was also very tempting, the upper limit of the 5 great killing moves of the Hidden Dragon style depended almost entirely on the body's endurance. He tried to use a Hidden Dragon-style technique infused with force. If martial arts were mathematics, then the coordination between movements and force was like assembling complex formulas, and Twin Lives didn't change that formula. It simply added to it, doubling the final power. Raging wind and thunder, which was already a punch that could explode with double the power after reinforcing his physical defense and stacking the effect. Of Twin Lives, it became almost invincible. When he unleashed the move, the force created cuts in the air and shattered the ground beneath his feet. Sanjin called out to him. Someone was looking for him. Her tone of voice made it clear she wasn't happy about it. It was Voidblade. She said she had something to talk to him about. He didn't expect her to show up in person. Sanjin asked him who she was, but he couldn't explain. Voidblade interrupted, asking if they were done talking. She said her time was precious. Sanjin snapped back, shouting that if she had something to say, she should just say it and stop being so mysterious. Voidblade calmly replied that only Chui Din could hear this. That answer only irritated Sanjin even more. Voidblade then suggested they talk somewhere private. Seeing Sanjin's reaction, Chui Din knew this wouldn't end well. Once outside, he asked what was so urgent that she had to come in person. She told him to relax. She was just here to deliver a message. He immediately thought of Wu Qing. Looking at her expression, he guessed he wasn't wrong. Voidblade projected a holographic image of a young girl. She introduced her as Otogi Suzuka, the third heir to the Otogi clan, one of the 6 great chaebols of the Far East. The blade in her hand is a sacred artifact. Sacred Artifact 519, the Indestructible Blade. Its ability is very simple and absolute. It cannot be destroyed. The idea of the strongest spear against the sturdiest shield seemed too perfect to be true. Voidblade noticed his doubt. Among all known sacred artifacts, there was no such thing as an unbreakable shield capable of withstanding it. Someone once used a special method to expose Sacred Artifact 519 directly to temperatures exceeding 10 million degrees. The blade remained completely unharmed. He asked if this was a new recovery mission. She shook her head. Sacred Artifact 519 wasn't out of control, so it didn't need to be recovered. He asked what he was supposed to do. Voidblade relayed Wu Qing's exact words. This wasn't about what she needed him to do, but whether he was willing to do it himself. Only then did he understand. Wu Qing wanted him to take it. Otogi Suzuka was coming to Geosia to participate in the U-19 Unlimited Fighting Tournament. Under normal circumstances, Yao making a move on her would cause a serious diplomatic incident, but now the situation was different. Sacred Artifact 519 has a unique property: it chooses its own master. If the user of Sacred Artifact 519 is defeated by someone else, ownership automatically transfers to the victor. And they know Jing likes those divine items, which is why they pushed you forward, encouraging you to take it yourself. All you have to do is beat her in the tournament. In a duel, once you win divine item 519 will be yours. Meanwhile, at the South City docks, a man reported to his master that their junior brother had stolen the spotlight in Fang with overwhelming victories in 12 preliminary matches. The reputation of the Golden Wind Dojo has spread rapidly. The master scoffed, saying that after just a few wins, his disciple was already getting full of himself. He lacks the fortitude to be anything but a laughingstock. Another disciple spoke up, arguing that the junior brother is a heaven-sent genius, and a little arrogance isn't necessarily a bad thing. Hong Yuan asked if Bai Ya was still relentlessly pursuing the incident. The disciple replied that he had silenced everyone involved, leaving Bai Ya with no way to dig deeper. Even so, he couldn't help but feel a little regret. Because Kai Bin had become a sacrificial lamb, Hong Yuan said that he also regretted Kai Bin's death, but it was just a small obstacle on the path to success. The important thing is to keep moving forward. Bikan asked what would become of their junior brother. Hong Yuan replied that the path he must walk is different from theirs. He added that he had no intention of revealing any of their plans to Tan Shuyan. With the final match approaching, there was no need to distract him. Bikan nodded, saying he understood. Back to our main character, Jing was stunned. He had only informed his master that he would be participating in the U-19 Unlimited Fighting Tournament, yet they all followed him. Fuang, Lei, San-An, Tenjiao, and Lei were all there. San-An explained that it was too dangerous for a boy to be out on his own. As his senior sisters, it was their duty to protect him carefully. Jing immediately asked who exactly was the dangerous one among them. Then he turned to Fuang Ne and asked for her reason. With a hint of sarcasm, he wondered if she was also here to protect him. Fuang Ne blushed before explaining that they still had to persevere with the Bastet fusion. He asked if she was addicted to it. She immediately broke into a sweat but firmly answered no. San-An noticed how close his relationship with the cat had become, pointing out that he even brought it with him to compete. Deep down, Fuang wanted to say that she simply wanted to be with him and that San-An should mind her own business. San-An then commented that it must be difficult to train with the cat around and suggested leaving it at the hotel. Fuang Ne immediately threatened that if he did that, she would run away from home. Jing was completely speechless. In the end, he could only say that everyone could come along. Inside the dojo, someone was giving a lecture. It was San-An. She warned Jing that with his current strength, there was absolutely no way he could defeat Otogi Suzuka. Jing asked what level she thought he was at. She replied that he was probably around level 3. He then asked if this level system was something specific to Fang Thane. She proudly said that she had invented it herself. Jing stared at her, unable to believe it. She asserted that her assessment was supported by solid evidence. Shizuka joined the sect at 50 years old and became the head disciple in just 5 short years. And 3 years later, she won a title in the martial arts world. Her strength is equivalent to their great senior brothers. San-An asked Jing if he thought he could defeat their great senior brother. No. Although Jing hadn't been in the sect for long, he knew there was still a huge gap between him and the great senior brother, and if the two of them were to fight, he knew he would most likely be utterly defeated. San-An was pleased that he had this level of self-awareness, but that wasn't the main point she wanted to make. The U-19 Unlimited Fighting Tournament is the only one in the world that allows the use of weapons. The power of a weapon can greatly affect the outcome of a match. Similarly, a contestant's overall strength is tied to their proficiency with their weapon. She asked him that if he had to choose a weapon that best suited him, which one would he pick? He replied that he wouldn't choose any. He only believed in his fists. She asked again if he would still cling to that belief. If she told him that Suzuka, when armed, is as strong as their great senior brother himself, that made him hesitate. She wrote a few words on the board, sword-wielding arts. Although she had never personally fought the great senior brother, she knew he had long mastered all the killer moves of the hidden dragon sect. Even if Jing trained his golden scale to its absolute limit, he would still have a hard time blocking a single full-power blow. And if 9 of them attacked at once, there would be only one result: complete and utter defeat. That's when San-An presented a savior and told him to look at it. Wrapped in a black cloth, Jing immediately sensed it was a good saber. San-An asked how he knew it was a saber. He said it spoke to him. When he unwrapped it, he could hardly describe the feeling. It was as if the weapon was calling out to him, whispering, "I want to be wielded by you." San-An smiled, clearly pleased. She said that since she hadn't given him anything since he joined the sect, this saber would be her gift. Jing asked how much it was worth. She explained that the main material was dragon bone steel forged with refined essence stone, moonlit fiber, and blood amber. Furthermore, the blacksmith was the great master Haruji. In total, it was worth about 20 million. She brushed it off, saying it wasn't that expensive, but Jing knew the truth. It was worth his entire fortune. He took the saber. Although he now had a weapon swinging, it still felt awkward. He wondered if it was like in games where you can use a weapon perfectly, the moment you pick it up. No. Suddenly he sensed danger. Something was flying toward him. Instinctively he raised the saber and blocked it. It was the master. Jing immediately asked if within the hidden dragon arts there were any techniques involving the use of weapons. Li explained that all supreme martial arts are interconnected. As he spoke, he poured tea from his cup onto the ground. The moves that can be performed with hands and feet can also be performed with a weapon. Jing was stunned to see the tea bore a hole straight through the floor. The master reminded him that the competition was approaching and he needed to learn a powerful killer move. Without a word of warning, Jing's consciousness was pulled elsewhere. He saw his master swinging a saber. Tin found himself surrounded by countless swords, one clutched tightly in his hand. At the same time, cuts blossomed all over his body as he looked down at himself. His fingers were severed, and fear surged within him. Then he noticed the corpses piled up beneath his feet. The illusion made him gasp for air. His expression was distorted, clearly shaken. His master's voice rang out, asking him how he felt. Only then did Tin understand that what he was sensing was killing intent. Li explained that the Shura sword intent is formed by pushing one's chi to its absolute limit when mastered. It could affect others without physical contact, relying entirely on mental consciousness. Tin asked if there was a scientific explanation behind it. Li replied that their hidden dragon style could summon dragons at will, so scientific logic had no place in this conversation. Since Tin wanted to learn how to use a weapon, Li offered to teach him the Shura sword intent. Even without a suitable physique or killing techniques, just swinging the blade with that concept in mind was already a feat. They started immediately. Tin said sparring with him would be a bit too much. Li asked what he was thinking and said that Fan Zhao would spar with him instead. He was instructed not to think about technique or form. All he had to do was attack Fan Zhao with true killing intent. If his opponent was her, he wouldn't hesitate to go easy. He swung his sword toward her, but she dodged it neatly. She countered with a sharp karate chop, but he managed to duck away in time. Then he tightened his grip on the sword. His master told them to go again. Li observed closely and realized Tin had a talent for weapons as well. At this rate, a week would be more than enough. Maybe just 4 days. That was his estimation before a disciple suddenly rushed towards him. The disciple reported that someone claiming to be from the Fang martial arts school had forced their way in and seemed to be looking for trouble. Before he could finish speaking, someone pushed him aside. A young disciple from the Fang martial arts school stepped forward and challenged Tin to a death match. Tin asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Li Tengsuin, a direct disciple of the Fang martial arts school. He declared that if he won, Tin would have to answer a question. Tin recalled seeing his name on the list of participants that Vu Tin had given him. That's when he realized this martial arts school was connected to those cockroach people. Li allowed Tin to exchange a few moves with him. He told Tin not to worry, as this was still his master's territory. Tin told Tengsuin that he accepted. Bak King recognized Tin. He was the one who killed number 1 and number 9. He warned Tengsuin that his opponent was very strong and told him to be careful. Tengsuin brushed it off. He said that he'd seen plenty of people who looked strong on the outside, but were weak on the inside. Tengsuin told Ting that since he was older, Tin should call him Brother Li. He leaned in close and whispered that Tin should relax, and that his big bro here would go easy on him. After all, this was Tin's home turf, and it wouldn't look good if he lost too much face. Tin could only sigh. He told him that he talked too much. He planted his sword into the ground and vanished. Tengsuin was left confused. Tin appeared behind him, ready to strike, but Tengsuin acted as if he had anticipated it. He shaped his hand like a blade. Tin clenched his fist and threw a punch. Their fists collided head-on. Tengsuin was pushed backward, his eyes lighting up as he realized Tin was no simpleton. Tin silently acknowledged it. The Fang White Rainbow Sword really lives up to its name. His fist was bleeding. The feeling was strange. This was his first real fight with a martial artist. All his previous enemies had been cyborgs or cockroach monsters. He was glad to finally face a worthy opponent. Tengsuin lunged forward. He swung his hand like a blade, chopping toward Tin. Tin blocked the blow with his reinforced forearm. The strike only lightly scratched his dragon scales. Tengsuin stared in shock at the golden-scaled skin. Tin was only 17 years old. He demanded to know how Tin had already cultivated to such a level. Tin answered by punching him and telling him to shut up while he was mid-air. Tin unleashed a barrage of phoenix claw punches which looked impressive. San-An was stunned by Tin's growth. Tin wondered if cultivating the Kim Fong white rainbow sword also strengthened the body. Anyone else would have collapsed after 2 or 3 punches yet. Thun Xuyen had endured a dozen of them like a man of steel almost without flinching. Then Tin spotted an opening. He activated twin forms. Just as he was about to land the blow, someone shouted for them to stop. Tin was startled, but he immediately pulled back his hand. Hongween stepped forward and said this was just a match, there was no need to go for the kill. Thun Xuyen was already injured. Alright, that's it for today's story. If you guys want to keep up with the weekly chapter updates for this series, they'll be posted on my second channel, Manhwa Update. So if you don't want to miss what happens next, be sure to drop by and join the update squad. Thanks for watching, keep your cool, stay awesome, and I'll see you all in the next video.